Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
John Campbell, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
John, what do you get when you take a John Hughes movie, and on the other hand, you got let's say Rear Window.
Yeah.
And then while you're holding them both, someone throws at your face, like the book Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
And you're trying to protect your face. So you put those hands up. You're like, no. And so you mush Salem's Lot, John Hughes, and Alfred Hitchcock together. What do you get?
I believe, and you can check my math on this, I believe you get 1985's Fright Night.
Okay, can you pause, because I'm terrible with math and I'm just going to use like a calculator app.
Yeah, let's just check these numbers here. And
checks out, John. Wow.
1985's Fright. Brendan, I got to say, this is like a breath of fresh air. I was so happy to be. This is a movie I know. This is a movie I love. And it was just such a pleasure to revisit this movie this morning, as opposed to some of the other stuff we've had to slog through. It's like, number one, a real studio film.
True.
Before we get to just the base level polish of being a studio movie is such a relief on here. This is not just somebody with a 16 millimeter camera running around going, "We can make a Frankenstein movie."
Yeah, that wasn't 16 millimeter. That was Betamax.
That was Betamax. But your Frankenstein Islands, your the Dawn of the Mummies. That's cheap film stock.
This is
here.
Definitely middle to lower studio film, but as you're saying, comparatively with what we've been watching, it stands out as being a real polished
by
thing.
the way, $9 million budget in 85. Not bad. I mean, that's some money in 85.
Yeah, and I think they use it well. Like you can see where they sink some money. Some of the effects are very cheesy. Some of the makeup and stuff is great.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're going to get a mixed bag, but still, it looks handsome. I do wish, and I don't really mean it, but I do kind of wish I had not had a job where I was a tour guide at Warner Brothers, because it just makes me highly sensitive to that is the back lot. And it's just me sitting there going, his neighborhood is, I mean, that was the Leave It to Beaver neighborhood. I can just sit there going, right, these houses are the same ones you saw in Gilmore Girls and It's like these things I could, it looked backlotty, but that's because I was very familiar with that thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do agree. It looks fine. It looks great. And yeah, I agree with the fact that the breath of fresh air thing, there's a comfort level with something that you've grown up with, and I include that. I mean, you were obviously much younger than me, but I saw this as a teen. Like this 85, I was 16. So I was in high school. I was like the age of Charlie and Ed and Amy. Is it Amy?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this is very much my wheelhouse. And I do think that while we were making fun of The Hunger for being very 80s, it was very urban, new wave kind of 80s, that kind of slinky, different kind of thing. This is my 80s, where it's very suburban. When they go into that dance club / restaurant, whatever that thing is, I was looking at all the styles and just going, oh my God, I wore stuff like that. Yeah, oh God. So yeah, this was comfort food. This movie's comfort food.
It really is. And it does have that thing, which is, I kind of missed out on the 80s being born at the tail end of them. But yes, this is the kind of movie I grew up on, and as you mentioned, the John Hughes movies. So this is my image of and Stephen King novels and things like that. This is my image of the 80s, way more so than The Hunger,
Right.
That's just not, this is because I grew up on the movies about kids, the Goonies. We'll talk about another childhood classic of my Monster Squad in a few weeks on the show.
Yeah.
But this was a movie that I saw on cable as a kid and just fell in love with because, particularly as a kid, the things that mixed horror and comedy or something, any kind of, and not that this movie's like overtly comedic, but it definitely has comedic moments to it. It's not as funny as something like Monster Squad, maybe, but
I think it's actually it's trying to walk a line similar to that American Werewolf in London did, though American Werewolf in London is, of course, better, unequivocally, as far as what it did. This is trying for the same thing, where it is going for a teen movie vibe with some comedy bits here and there, like his mom is somewhat clueless and comedic, and Ed is the nerdy geek guy, and they do a lot of showbiz-esque comedy with Peter Vincent.
That's where a lot of the and sort of the meta satirical horror movie aspects of that stuff. But just as a kid, I just was obsessed with this tone. Like, I was just like, oh my god, the mixture of monster, but it's also funny. I couldn't get enough of that. It was just the best kind of movie, and it still is. Even adult me just goes crazy for that kind of tone.
When you get it right, it's great. Because the thing with any kind of something that's straight horror, where it's an unrelenting assault and it's that's visceral, it's great. But there's something about when you mix genre and you mix tone, if you get it right, it is equally unsettling, because you don't quite know how to react here or there. It can surprise you, and I do like that. I like a dynamism to tone, to where it's like, this could just be grim. Instead, every now and then I'm laughing.
The other thing is,
and then it gets shocking again.
From my point of view, I was a kid in the 90s, so things were getting real meta. I was a Scream kid. That was my horror movie. Ghostface is my generation slasher. Like, it's not, so it is the ironic. Which is hilarious, that
your generation slasher is a comment on all the pre-existing slashers.
That's the thing. I grew up, my generation was firmly in the we've already seen everything. I'm in the generation that was born already over conventions, it seems like.
Yeah, apparently.
So that was the thing, and I remember Scream was part of that thing as a kid, where I'm like, my God, this movie's funny and self-aware. Like, it felt like these movies were aimed at me in a way, and this movie has a little bit of that, postmodern ironic nature to it as well, where it's like, he knows it's a vampire from vampire movies, and he goes to Ed, who has advice on how to defend against a vampire that's all taken from books and movies and stuff like that. So these were all movies I saw going, oh shit, this stuff is aimed right at me, because I do read all the comics and books and watch the movies. So having characters that are just as versed as I am, as opposed to what we talked about, the frustration in Hammer movies, where somebody has to sit down and go, well, here's a vampire, you say, like.
We still get that here, though.
You still get it here, but it's
we'll
a little
get into
bit
it. There's a
more
couple
snappy.
Things here.
And we're all familiar. The pop culture understanding of vampires exists in this, and that's the thing I guess I'm talking about, where it's sort of like
I this go around, I was sitting there going, wait a minute, Charlie is introduced as being a huge Peter Vincent fan. He's always watching these movies. Why does he go to Ed for any advice? He's seen every one of those movies already. Ed doesn't tell him anything he wouldn't have known from watching those. This is true.
But Ed needs to be the bigger nerd, and the guy with that.
He has to be the bigger nerd.
Yeah.
We should talk about posters and get right into it.
We should talk about posters, because I love this poster.
It's great, actually.
This is a great we're in an era like this, early to mid 80s has some killer posters. And this one, oh my God. And also, what a perfect poster when we talk about this delivers exactly the tone the movie has, which is this idea of this old, ancient evil infiltrating the modern suburbs. And that is very thematically what we're seeing from this poster.
It looks very much like, and probably to its benefit, but it looks very much like horror paperback covers of
Yes.
the same period of the 80s.
I mean, this could be the
art
cover.
style.
This could be the cover to a printing of Salem's Lot, and it would make sense.
It could, yeah. So you've got your painted suburban house. Clearly, they didn't watch the movie closely enough because there are no houses on the other side.
No, I mean, it's not supposed to. I don't think it's
no,
all
I know it's not supposed to be
aesthetic and probably painted before they even shot a frame of this thing.
Could be.
Yeah.
So you got a window that it's at night, but one of the windows is lit, and you see someone like a silhouette of someone in the window looking out, and then above it, the night sky, you get this really awesome sort of mushroom cloud of night clouds in the shape of demonic bat faces and everything has sharp fangs, and in the center of it, big old scary vampire face.
Yeah.
Which is actually very true to the makeup that we see later in the movie.
Yeah, which is not just fangs, but mouth full of teeth with protruding fangs. It's very animalistic and unsettling. The
where
vampire design in this movie.
Almost transformative into a snout because the lips are pulled back. And the mouth is much wider than a mouth should be. And from the eyelashes, I assume this is transformed Amy, which is hilarious that we're not getting Dandridge on the poster, but it's supposed to be her.
That's true, yeah. And it's
then
overtaking the house.
Full moon.
Yeah, full moon. It seems to be overtaking the house. And then I love the design of the logo of the movie with the long F and T making stakes.
Making steaks or fangs, but it's very good.
Yeah,
that graphic designer needs a pat on the back because that's great font.
It's
good font work.
It's so good that when they remade this, and I think is it 2010, I believe the remake is.
They used
They just kept that logo because you can't improve upon it.
You can't. It's done.
It's so good, and the tagline is, "If you love being scared, it'll be the night of your life."
Oh.
I like the funhouse carnival kind of aspect of that. There are other taglines. There's a couple other taglines.
Well, up at the top of the poster is there are some very good reasons to be afraid of the dark.
Oh yes, well that's the other one.
Then under the slogan, under the title is "If you love being scared, it'll be the night of your life."
So it has both of those. Those are the two taglines. That's something 80s posters did. They would double dip when it was sort of like either or. How about both?
You know what? We can put them both on there. No one's gonna balk at that.
Two taglines is like, dude, pick one, because they're both good. I get why they would be torn between those, but they're both good. But I'll tell you right now, it's another one of these ticket sold. I see this poster.
Oh yeah.
And you did see this movie, you're saying, Brendan? So
I did. Yeah, I went to the theater to watch Fright Night. It was rated R. I was not supposed to be able to get in, but you get in.
Well, especially back then. Especially back then, I feel like it was easier.
It was definitely it was a showdown between you and the pimply faced teenager from The Simpsons, who really didn't care. It's like, your movie's in the theater to the left, and then he sees you clearly go in the one on the right. He's like, oh, whatever.
Man, that's interesting because I grew up in an era when. Especially by the time I actually was 17, they were really cracking down on this stuff. And they would put an usher in the theater checking tickets.
Oh,
so you would give it to the guy out front who'd tear the ticket, and then they'd have a second person there to confirm for some of the R-rated movies I saw.
Usually the ushers at these theaters, which, growing up in the burbs and in the 80s, were probably 3 screens, maybe 4 at the most.
Yeah.
And again, the person tearing tickets was maybe a year or two older than you and did not give a shit.
Right.
So it was just sort of like you bought your ticket for the Goonies or something, and then you took a right and you checked out Terminator or whatever. It was like, no one's going to get on your ass.
That's interesting, because I also had a couple times, and once again, this is all, I wasn't sneaking into these movies, but still, like, when I was like 18, I had ushers come in with flashlights and go, let me see the tickets. What do you got?
I did experience that at some of the, other the bigger theaters I would go to in town.
Once again, by the time I'm going to movies, it's all big theaters. It's all Regal joints and stuff like that. You couldn't go somewhere. I grew up in the corporation era.
It's all mega Lexus.
So that was where they were really cracking down and going like, we're gonna fucking keep these kids. Now here's the thing. My dad would just take me to shit. Like, my dad didn't care. So
nice.
I got taken to, I would be the kid in high school who had seen R-rated movies at 14, and I didn't sneak into them because my dad took me to Kill Bill or whatever, you know? Like, he would take me to Tarantino movies or horror movies or, you know, I remember going to see Gladiator when I was like 12, you know, like, that kind of thing. Or you're like...
Were you not amused?
Oh, I was very amused.
Okay.
Dude, there's a part, I mean, all 12-year-old me could fixate on is there's a part when he takes two swords and cuts a guy's head off like it was scissors. I was like, no, he sliced his head off with two swords. That's all. If you had asked 12-year-old me what he thought of Gladiator, he just would have told you about that and Russell Crowe fighting a tiger, and that's all he would have cared about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Your dad has a lot to answer for.
Oh, yeah. Well, there was a lot of my dad being home and my mom going to work created a lot of that. So it was also like, mom's at work and it's, you know, summer. We're watching Dirty Harry, you know, like whatever. And you're 7. And I loved it, man. And it turned me into the person I am today. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You wonder about all the bloodlust and stuff I have on this show. It goes right back to my father.
Because I know exactly where it comes from.
It all goes right back to my dad, who, yes, has a lot. And it was a lot of like, you showed him what? Too late. Already saw it. Anyway.
Too late. It's in his brain.
Yep. Turned me not a violent person, just really into violent movies.
Sure.
So yeah, let's dive into Fright. This is the only thing I want to say about this movie because I was looking through the trivia, and this just broad strokes about the movie. At the time, this studio's big 2 releases, I thought this was very funny, were Perfect with John Travolta, Jamie Lee Curtis, which is an awful movie.
It really is, with a couple of likable stars, but it is junk.
It is total crap. And The Slugger's Wife is the other one. These were the
Slugger's Wife. That was the baseball movie with Rebecca De Mornay, right?
Yeah, Michael O'Keefe and Rebecca De Mornay.
O'Keefe.
Remember when Michael O'Keefe was making a run at leading man status?
He tried.
It didn't go, man. That was a Neil Simon script.
Oh, boy.
Neil Simon script directed by the great Hal Ashby, but totally forgettable.
No one cared.
No, and here's the thing. So they talked about Tom Holland, not Spider-Man, but the writer-director of this movie, talked about that was a gift because nobody gave a shit what was going on Fright Night. And then Fright Night ends up being the biggest movie that they put out that year.
I do love when a genre flick surprises everybody because it is almost a stand-in for the age-old snobs versus slobs thing, where when a superhero movie or whatever, a vampire flick, catches a studio off guard and becomes their biggest hit, I always just do a little cheer. Whether or not I liked the movie, I just sit there going, yes. It's like, take that, you idiots. You thought it was all your eggs were in the drama basket, the Oscar contender basket, and then this thing comes out of nowhere and it's a huge hit. You want to know why? Because people wanted a vampire. I mean, they wanted some superheroes. Oh, you dicks.
The Slugger's Wife closed out its run with 1.8 million worldwide gross. Fright Night 24.9. This made almost 25 times as much money as The Slugger's Wife.
That is gorgeous.
Yeah. Because you know why? This movie's fun. This is the kind of movie people want to go to on a Saturday night. This is I mean, you know, to borrow a phrase from Stefan, this movie has it all, man. It has everything.
Midgets on skateboards. Yeah.
Dan Cortez. Yeah.
One of my favorites is like, it's a new club, just opened, and its name is Margaret?
Yeah. I also like one where he goes, the New York's hottest club is spicy. I love when like tones or gestures are involved in the name of the club.
Yes. I watched like a 3-hour supercut of all the Stefan bits because I'm sad and it made me laugh.
It's funny, man, and it's funny how funny they think it is. And
I also watched a whole bunch of the what's the name of the old newscaster, Herb something or other?
Herb Welch.
Herb Welch. Yeah, I was on a real Bill Hader kick, and
well,
good
as you
Lord,
should
every one
be.
of those killed me.
I'll teach you how to come on down here. I'll teach you how to.
Well, if you've ever seen the original thing,
the original thing is
on,
one of the greatest things ever.
It's like, you're gonna teach me how to broadcast.
I love the real guy goes, I used to be your boss, and the anchor says, well, you're not anymore. How'd that happen? Whatever, you haircut.
I don't take orders from a mannequin.
Yeah.
Anyway, this isn't what we're here to talk about.
But,
I want to stay on topic with Fright Night because I love Fright Night.
This thing has everything. This is such a perfect take your gal, take your buddies, because it's funny, it's scary, it's just fun. It's just going to deliver. And also, critics were into this movie, which I was 92% on Rotten Tomatoes.
There's also, because of the period and the genre, unnecessary boobs.
Yes. There are somewhat. Someone didn't want to show their boobs in the movie, though. Which is also in the trivia. And they didn't make her, unlike some of the other things we've done. Nor fire her.
They did some see-through action, but that was as far as she was willing to go.
Oh, actually, that isn't even her, as says in the trivia here. Those were prosthetic breasts that she was wearing in that sequence.
Wow, I didn't know that. Well,
so much
thank
so
you,
that
trivia.
Amanda Beers apparently brings those prosthetic breasts with her to conventions now.
Oh, that's actually great.
Yeah.
And actually,
and invites audiences
because
to feel her boobs, she says.
That's great.
That's very fun.
That just proves that she took no shit. So good on you, Amanda Beers.
Yeah.
No,
I think that's very fun.
We'll talk about it. I do, as I told you before, I have an updated opinion about the film, but we'll get there. Let's just start it.
Let's do, indeed. So the movie opens in this very fun way where we start on the full moon. We're moving through the suburban town. We're hearing a wolf howl. We're hearing people have this kind of horror movie conversation. And, of course, we come to realize this is playing on our main character, Charlie Brewster's TV.
I do like that opening. It's just very clever. And, of course, you get the impression it's not real, mainly because it's heightened cheesy movie dialogue, and you hear the hiss kind of broadcast.
Yes,
but it is subtle, and when we zoom in, it is apparently an older horror movie, though it looks like it was shot like an 80s soap opera. That cracked me up. Is that it's supposed to be an early Peter Vincent film because he's got the dark hair, so maybe 60s, 70s.
Yeah,
but they didn't really
very
match that.
It's supposed to be very Hammer-esque, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it is supposed to be. But yeah, when you actually see it on the TV, it does look like an 80s soap opera, including the woman's hair in it is this ridiculously big, poofy 80s hair.
I mean, I think it's one of those things where you talk about using your budget and where you're doing it, and I feel like they didn't have the time or the money to put
it'll sell itself. People get the gag.
Yeah.
And so it is a vampire movie on the TV in a teen's bedroom. Where's the teen?
Well, okay, here's the thing about this is I do relate a lot to Charlie Brewster, our main character here, except for this exact scenario would be playing out in my teenage life, except for there would be no girl making out with me. I would just be watching that vampire movie is what, like, 16-year-old me would have been doing.
I don't mean to brag, but by that age, by 16, 17, I was probably watching this with my girlfriend.
Wow, look at you.
And making out. But it would have been at her place because my place with my mom and my brother was not big enough. We would not have been able to hide in a room.
I'll tell you exactly where I would have been in friend of the show and fellow network podcaster. I would have been in Mike Gergoni's basement watching old horror movies with two very single guys who remained single through all of high school by choice, of course, but no, of course not by choice, but who we had many female friends.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was
I mean,
that
I
was
certainly
very
do
much
understand that.
Yeah, that was very much the scenario I was in. I was close friends with a lot of very cool girls, but nothing happened.
I remember an actual Charlie Brewster moment of me and my high school girlfriend, who shall remain nameless, but making out on a Halloween night in her bedroom, with on the VCR like the blood spattered bride. We had rented some like obscure European horror movies. So this exact scenario, except for I was dressed as a pirate. And she was dressed as an angel. It was Halloween, and something very magical happened that evening while horror movies were playing on the TV.
Something that does not happen to Charlie Brewster here in this.
No, he does not get to pluck that precious flower. It's someone else who does that.
I like this scene because for a second I was like, oh no, when he's all pissed about like, we've been going a year and I'm getting nothing. I'm like, oh no, don't. And then he does like go, and I'm sorry, that's like, you know, they make Charlie a teenager, but a good-hearted one at his core, even if he still does.
They're giving lip service to what you expect, which is, God damn it, I'm blue-balled over here kind of guy. And then you see that he realizes this is a selfish tack, and I do love you. I'm sorry I said that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
then she's like, oh, that's all right.
And that's the moment when I'm like, okay, now I can relate to this guy who, yes, of course he wants to have sex with his girlfriend, but he does have a conscience, and you know, and he's going like, well, but I do actually really like her. Now here's the thing that I saw this in the trivia. Do you know who the studio's choice for the character of Charlie Brewster was?
No.
Another famous Charlie, Mr. Charlie Sheen. They were trying to push on Tom Holland.
So wouldn't have worked.
That's exact. Tom Holland said, "Look, I want a guy who feels like just the guy who lives next door. I don't want Charlie." And that's the kind of thing where
Charlie Sheen. I mean, even early Charlie Sheen, fine young actor.
Hey, the next year after this, he makes Platoon, and he's amazing.
Right, but he is, especially then, he's beautiful. He's a pretty man. Yeah. There's no way that a stud guy could be Charlie Brewster, because you do need exactly that. Ragsdale is approachable and soft-faced. He looks like a kind of nerd.
He looks like a kind of nerd, but kind of a handsome. Like you could imagine.
Yes.
I think both of these two people are well cast because they're both attractive. But
but not unrealistically. Yes,
they are attractive in the way the person who sits next to you in algebra is attractive.
Right,
like
it's true. Amanda Bierce is
on...
cute in this, but she's not like this stunner, which they could have gone with too.
Well,
they could have said, "Oh no, we got to get freaking Christina Applegate or somebody in there."
Yeah. Just jump to another cast member of Married with Children.
Oh, that's true. I did that subconsciously. That's hilarious.
They could have got, I don't know, Katie Seagal in this. No, they could have put Ed O'Neill, for God's sake. You know,
we're going really. This is a very interesting take on Amy.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Charlie could have been David Faustino. No. Who would have been 10. No.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
Christina Applegate would have been too young, too.
I think Ragsdale and Bierce are so well cast here because they do feel... And also when we get to Evil Ed, he feels like a real nerd, not a movie nerd. So I think everybody is so well cast in this. We'll talk about how much I love Chris Sarandon's performance, too.
We will.
You know, I just think across the board, this thing is well cast, and we'll talk about Peter Vincent and who was supposed to have that part as well, because that also would have, I think, changed the film to a certain extent.
I love when we find out that studios were completely wrong. That's another thing where I go, take that, studios. they just are almost universally incorrect. Yeah. They want to go a certain way, and the director or the producer goes, no. Did you read the script?
No, yeah, this is one complete. This is Ragsdale's perfect for this. I love him in this, and I always enjoy Ragsdale. So much so, like when he shows up in a recurring role on Justified many years later, I'm like, Ragsdale. I'm just happy to see the guy.
It's true.
Yeah, and he
feels like an old buddy because he is playing a character that we could easily self-insert.
Totally.
That sounds
I mean,
wrong.
This movie has some of the same, and even thematically and stuff like that, has some of the same appeal that Salem's Lot did, and the character in that as well also felt like we were talking about. This is a kid we could relate to. We would be this kid.
Yeah.
So I think that's similar. So then she is down for it because I think she obviously likes the idea that there is an emotional connection here. So she gets more comfortable, a little bit more comfortable. You still get the sense she's nervous about it in a realistic way, though.
Yeah, but then she's like, you know what? You've been really patient, and let's go ahead and do it. She starts taking off her top.
Yeah.
And
right about the time he doesn't even see her in that bra because he is fixated on, what's this? A couple of guys are carrying a coffin across the lawn next door.
Yeah, it's a running gag kind of every time she's sort of like, all right, let's do this. He becomes Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window, or actually probably closer to what's his name in Body Double.
Where Craig Wasson?
Craig Wasson, where he's suddenly fascinated
by
what's happening
with Body Double. Wasson is not a leading man. And I think he really hurt that movie.
The movie is tricky regardless, but yeah it seems, why did they go there?
I always thought
with the
I'm not saying it would be a great movie, but it's sort of like, man, this is a weird choice and makes that movie less enjoyable. Not a bad actor, just not the main guy in something.
No, agreed.
Anyway, and so then he gets his binoculars out. And she's over there taking her top and then kind of putting her shirt back on and kind of, she's going through her own whole arc of emotions that he's oblivious to. I love the way this scene is put together. All props to Tom Holland here.
Yeah, she's just like, I can't believe that he's going to just, like, this is what he's paying attention to. He's like, hey, there are these two guys carrying a coffin into the I thought it was abandoned, but house across the way. And she's like, and looking at the TV, and there's something similar on the horror movie. She goes, right. So are you sure they're not on the moors? He goes, no, this is real. Not on the TV. It's happening. She's like, great. And she's like, this isn't happening anymore. She's buttoning up her shirt.
Yeah. I got to say, I don't know to the point of ignoring sex. But I would be. If I saw two guys, dragging a coffin in somewhere, I would be like, what the fuck?
It's true. I mean, that would be hard to ignore.
Yeah, like I would have a lot. I don't know that I would be this distracted, but I certainly, in my mind, I still would be like, what was that about?
Yeah, but I also remember being a teenage boy, so I think maybe I would eventually kind of go, oh yeah, whatever. I'm sure that's interesting. Hey, Amy.
30-something me would be a little bit more like, well, what the hell is that about? I better look into this.
I'd think about it, but I think I would easily turn right back to my soon-to-be naked girlfriend.
Yeah. So she storms out, and he chases after her. And, of course, this is where we meet Charlie's mom, who's a delightful performance as well. From, who is this actress?
Good character work.
Dorothy Fielding is this actress here. As Judy Brewster. She looks like a regular of many a TV guest spot. She was in 312 episodes of The Doctors back in the late 70s.
Jeez.
Whatever that was.
That was a doctor show.
I assume that it is. I mean, it must have been a soap opera, I see, since they made 4,518 episodes of it.
Yeah, then I would say it was probably that, yeah.
Otherwise, that show is still on. I don't think it is. But anyway, she's very good here, and she's instantly like, oh, are you two having a lover's spat? Which this is also great kind of John Hughesian stuff, where it's like your parent thinking you having a relationship is adorable.
What's hilarious about that scene is they come downstairs, have not a hushed conversation, and she's like going, I guess you just don't want to make love to me.
Yeah.
Like, she says that out loud.
And
so
weird.
Literally 8 feet away, the mom just goes, oh, are you two having a lover's spat? Yeah. Like, the mom just heard them talking about having sex and is totally fine with
That's
it.
the thing about hearing a teenager say make love is so weird. Even,
Well, yeah.
Even as an adult, I still find it strange if somebody says make love.
Well, that's because you're cold.
Oh,
and
this is well established.
Yeah.
My cold, emotionless robot
I do not
nature.
understand the human need to say make love when what they mean is procreate.
Yeah. The need to create offspring to continue said species. Now it makes
Copulation?
sense. Yeah. Now I understand why I relate to all these like Mr. Spock type characters. I see.
Yeah, you green-blooded Vulcan.
We have sort of a Spock McCoy relationship on this show.
Yep.
But yeah, so she's.
I'm also Southern and like to get drunk.
Now she's still getting upset with him here, and he's back looking out the window again because he's like, "What the fuck is?" As she,
yeah, he cannot stay away from looking out the window.
And so she just takes off out the door, and then the mom's like, "Well, that was awfully mean, Charlie."
Yeah, because he blows off his girlfriend.
And he's just like, what's the deal with the people moving in next door?
And she's like, oh, didn't I tell you that somebody's bought the house and they're going to fix it up?
And so that's intriguing. Meanwhile, they're at school. This is where we meet Evil Ed, or Ed, and Charlie likes to call him Evil, which Ed does not enjoy.
It is interesting because we're never really sure where the nickname came from. Other than the fact that he also likes horror movies, just like Charlie does.
And also, Evil Ed is a pretty sweet nickname.
It is. It was so sweet that didn't they turn that into Evil Ernie?
Yeah,
I was about it. There was a comic book character called Evil Ernie.
There was a Fright Night comic book which I just recently heard about. I did not know.
Yeah, there was.
Now Comics, which I do vaguely remember as a publisher back in the day.
One of those struggling will they won't they survive indie comics publishers.
Yeah,
and they got a lot of media licenses. I think they did a Planet of the Apes comic, or is that Innovation? It was either Now.
It was one of those, but I do remember that the Now comics I had were like movie tie-ins, like Fright.
Yeah,
I don't think I had the Fright Night comic, but I had things like that. Although now I'm kind of
they might have done Hellraiser.
Ooh, I think they did. I'm almost no, because there were a bunch of those. Now I'm going like, no, I think they did have the Green Hornet license, and I had some Now Green Hornet.
Yes,
comics.
They did have Green Hornet. And I have the hardcover compilation of all those.
Oh, there you go. I still have a handful of the issues of those.
They were pretty good. I mean, the art is pretty substandard, but
that's usually where those publishers fall apart. I feel like is in the art.
They just couldn't afford the really hot young talent, but the writing was solid. That was a good Green Hornet comic.
I remember enjoying it. I should pull those issues out.
That's why people are listening to this podcast right now, so we can talk about Green Hornet comics from the 1980s.
Their comic, as a lot of them did, I see here, says that they started as like a 4-issue adaptation of the movie, and then it just kept going. No, there it is. It was followed by 20 more issues chronicling the further adventures of Peter, Vincent, and Charlie Brewster. They quickly phased Amy out of the comics, of course, but Evil Ed was given a larger role, and ultimately Jerry Dandridge was resurrected. God, of course, fucking course, because come on, comics.
Come on, comics.
Well, I'm just going like, come on, comics writers. Why don't you come up with some new villains? They're like, why don't we just bring back the guy that died in the movie?
Well, yeah, I mean, I assume that they did, and then they're like, yeah, this is not working so well. And then, of course, let's bring back Dandridge.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Oh, I have some interesting...
I'm ready.
I'll sprinkle these in throughout the thing, because I have bits from the novelization that fill in details that are missing from the movie.
Holy mackerel. You did your research.
Yeah, I did.
You're like me in the old days.
There was
remember those times?
I do remember those times. There's apparently a whole thing in the book about how Charlie's father had abandoned the family years ago, because there is no explanation as to where Charlie's father is in the movie.
True. Not even a dropped mention.
Yeah, so apparently there is something about him having left the family and disappeared. And they say while they say that Charlie and Amy have been a couple for nearly a year, in the book it is made clear they've only been seeing each other for 3 months.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if that adds or takes away.
I have no idea. It doesn't.
I would say a year makes more sense with his frustrations.
Because he says, although I think maybe the joke in the book is saying, he says, we've been going together for nearly a year and it's been 3 months, but to a teenager, that's nearly a year. I think maybe that's the thing. Also, this will fill in a lot for you. In the novelization, Charlie's middle name is revealed to be Alan.
That does. Thanks.
That answers a lot of questions.
So much. You know what, guys?
Yeah.
Go ahead and turn this off now. I think we finally,
we figured
out.
I have more that'll come up as we go through the movie. So
okay. All right. Don't forget.
I won't. I've got it here. All right. Yeah, good. So Evil Ed is mocking Charlie for I almost called her Amanda, Amy, being upset with him. He thinks it's very funny that mainly because I know this feeling of being the friend who does not have a girlfriend in high school.
Right.
I imagine that's what that.
Yeah, but Evil Ed doesn't either.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, but that's why he's laughing at relationship troubles here.
And he also, of course, I will say that the movie is very efficient. It's sticking to its story where it could have, we could have had more stuff with him in school or get a better idea of his world. We really, really don't. We see like the high school for one bit, and we see like some literally Grease era throwback diner for like a half bit where it's like, oh, we're hanging out at this kind of ice cream shop.
When you talk about the movie is efficient, but it's also not that lean. It comes in at about an hour 45. So
it's filling its time with is specific to the narrative, and it doesn't wander off. Where if you were doing more of a teen movie, you would probably want to give a better idea of why is Charlie this way? You know, you might have mentioned the dad or whatever.
Right.
Why is he obsessed with these movies? Why does he? The biggest problem I have with it, we'll get to in a little bit. So
Charlie comes home and he sees a hot blonde get out of a cab. Ask, is this 99 whatever? And he's like, no, that's the house next door. And so at this point, it seems like, wow, whoever's next door must be a real player. Because damn.
Because this sexy lady gets out and she's, oh, okay, thanks a lot. And he's like, damn.
So that's just to set up for stuff that will happen later.
I thought that was a one and done. I didn't know that had anything to do with.
Meanwhile, we go to said 50s diner where Amy is apologizing to Charlie.
Oh yeah.
But of course he's distracted because there's a news report on about a murder that's happened.
This movie, I love it, but still, come on. It does about 3 or 4 of these newscast drop-ins that are perhaps the most awkwardly dropped in I've ever seen. Because literally it's a TV in the diner and Charlie is distracted over the sound of a crowd and his girlfriend basically saying, oh, I'm so happy you want to get back together, because he apologizes too. And he's like, I really do love you. But then he's like looking up because he hears about a woman was killed and found decapitated or whatever. And then they show a picture on the newscast, and it's the blonde lady he had talked to the night before or the day before. So yeah, it's a little convenient. There are many of these conveniences. This breaking news, they found the body of a man around the train yards.
You know what, though? I'm not complaining about it simply because I'll take efficiency over anything compared to some of the stuff we've been watching. You know what I mean? Like,
agreed.
Just the fact that this movie clips along was such a pleasure, you know?
Yeah.
You're going like, okay, good. We got a plot going. We don't have a bunch of middle-aged dudes wandering around an island for 2 hours.
You keep harping on that movie, and I say give Frankenstein Island another chance. I don't know what your deal is with that thing.
Brendan, I believe if we play back the tape from that previous episode, you also called it perhaps the worst movie you've ever watched. So
fake news, man, fake news. And I think you are a dog with a bone when it comes to Frankenstein.
Lone Frankenstein Island defender Brendan Jones once again.
It'd be great if that's what I was known for. I don't know about the Jones guy. he really did get behind Frankenstein Island awfully hard.
Like you make a TV appearance, it's the Chiron, Brendan Jones, Frankenstein Island defender.
Frankenstein Island defender. There is nothing to defend there. There is nothing to defend. Even the lives of its stars, they're not worth anything.
It has
That's what I
zero redeeming qualities as a piece of filmmaking. So she's mad at him again, and so mad she grabs a guy's, what is that, a sloppy Joe? It looked like
I think it's a sloppy Joe. Yeah, because when she smears it against his face, it looks like refried beans.
It looks that's what I couldn't figure out. But it also had onion, like full onions, like rings in it.
Stop! You're making me hungry.
I know it did actually kind of look good. And once again, Ed is loving this.
Ed, we need to talk about Ed.
We need to talk. Do we need to talk about Ed, or do we need to talk about actor Stephen Geoffreys?
First, I want to talk about Ed.
Yeah,
Ed is an interesting character, mainly because of the performance. Because on paper, I would assume that it would just be this sort of annoying frenemy, because he's always getting digs in at Charlie. But are they really friends? Maybe so.
That's kind of. That's what I was watching. Is going like, I don't know how much these guys are actually friends as much as they're together sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I think it is the bond that outsiders have, or the bond that nerds can feel.
I mean, I remember having this in high school. Other kids who read comic books or liked genre movies.
And you're like, yeah, I don't really like this guy that much, but we share this interest.
They speak the same language, yeah. And it was sort of like, well, if Gorgoni's not around, I can talk to this guy about, whatever, Star Trek or whatever.
Yeah, that'll do for now.
Yeah.
But so the character really comes to life thanks to this performance. The thing is, we'll get to talking about what his life became, but
it's interesting.
His take, his whole persona, the voice, the way he does all of his line readings, and then the weird sadness of the later parts, it's unique. There is not a performance in a genre film that I can recall that is so idiosyncratic.
Yeah.
That works. Because, I mean, you can go in being weird. You can watch Manos, The Hands of Fate, and look at Torgo and go, what the hell was that guy thinking? But here you go, this Ed character only works because of this performance. And that guy looks and acts unlike any character in a teen movie you would have seen around the same time.
Yeah.
So my hat's off to him. We remember him for this. I don't think he could have ever been a huge movie star.
I mean,
but what an interesting character actor.
This did get him the lead in 976 Evil, though.
True. Not a great movie.
No,
but it was him being the lead.
Director Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger himself, was apparently so taken with him in this movie that he sought him out for that movie.
Sure, and that's understood. And I mean, he got a lot of work around that time. He was also in an Amazing Stories episode.
And he the next year he's in At Close Range with Sean Penn and Christopher Walken.
But pretty quickly,
well, he did turn down Fright Night Part 2 to star in 976 Evil. And then it was after 976 Evil. You're talking about his other career?
He became a gay porn star.
Yes, he sure did. Appeared for several years in gay pornographic films under the alias Sam Ritter, which I gotta say, not a great porn name.
No.
Hi, I'm
sounds
Sam
like
Ritter.
A name.
It just sounds like a guy, yeah.
Just sounds like some guy. So no judgments here. If that was what he felt he wanted to do. I think
it's more the trajectory that makes it seem like a sad story. You know what I mean? Like,
and what I hope is that that's the whole thing. Is like, it's not what he ended up doing. My hope is that it was a choice. My hope is it wasn't because of drugs or a lack of any other work. I mean, I hope at some point it was him, and I haven't read the background, so I don't know if he said, you know what? I found my happiness, and it's in being in gay porn. And if it was, good on you. I will say you did some very excellent work in Fright Night, and I probably will not watch your later work, but
Well,
I still
I will say
appreciate
in what is it here? I'm looking at his Wikipedia. He did return to horror films in 2007 and has been appearing in them since. So, I mean, he's back in mainstream films at least.
And again, like I said, my hope is only that all of this was according to his own wishes. You read a lot of stories or hear a lot of stories, sadly, about people, their careers start to tank due to whatever, could be a personal issue, could be dependencies and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's always a sad thing. The fact that he's still around and is getting work here and there in mainstream stuff, I'm glad it didn't end up being one of those kinds of tragic stories of like,
Right.
then he spiraled and then it was blah, blah, blah. Because that's happened to very big names.
He does seem to be
a
a big hit at the horror conventions, I see here from research as well, which makes sense because he's Evil Ed everywhere he goes,
Of course. And I would like to watch, have not seen, but I would like to watch the documentary that they made, which is called it's the Brewster line.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You're So Smooth, Brewster, or whatever.
Something like
they
that.
made a feature-length documentary about the making of Fright Night, and I think they got everybody.
Well, and because I read this thing about this here, that they were so upset that the studio wouldn't make a DVD with special features that Tom Holland and the cast just made their own special features.
Great.
So they recorded commentary tracks that you can download and listen to along with the movie, and they made this documentary as well. You're So Cool, Brewster, the story
You're
of
So
Fright
Cool,
Night.
Brewster. Yeah.
Which is that's awesome. They just did their own thing, man. I love it.
And I don't really understand why any studio would discourage that, because this is a cult classic.
This movie feels ripe for a Shout Factory Blu-ray release.
Yeah. So that's us giving a shout out to a very interesting actor who gave an unforgettable performance. And it is shocking that he didn't have a bigger mainstream career, but Stephen Geoffreys, we're fans.
Love him in this. I don't remember 976 Evil too well.
I do vaguely. I
remember it a bit. But hey, man, once again, no matter what, he'll always be Evil Ed. So
he will always be Evil Ed.
He is great.
And I think it's great when it's something that you literally can say, even if it's one, to have something that's immortalized.
Mm-hmm.
Fright Night will be watched as long as people watch vampire films, because it's one of the most entertaining and a really great one, especially of this era.
That's one of my favorites for sure.
People will be talking about Evil Ed for the rest of time.
I am looking here, and it does look like there is a Blu-ray release of Fright Night now that does contain that documentary and some of these special features. I'm looking at this going, I need to get this. Because it's a 3.5 hour documentary on the making of the movie.
That is, well, I'll say this. Sounds definitive.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe is any of that runtime made up with scenes from Halfway House Hunks?
I think it might be. It might be. Actually,
Butt Blazer?
Yes. That's in there for sure. That I know is in there.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait. This may be a foreign release that has this. But I think
But you have a region-free DVD player.
I do, specifically for things.
Player.
Specifically for things like this. Ooh, and it's a 4K restoration. Oh, I am definitely.
Damn.
I am buying this.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're hearing the sounds of John spending money.
Yeah. Here it comes.
So I hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah. No, I definitely need to own this because I love this movie. And I want to see this documentary. And there's a bunch of other stuff, too. There's like a panel discussion from a convention.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Anyway, everybody go to Amazon.com.
Everybody go to hell. Go straight to hell.
Everyone go to Amazon.com and look up the Eureka Classics special edition Blu-ray of Fright Night, which is, yes, unfortunately in Region 2. For those,
I gotta get one of those region-free players. There's
they're
always
worth it,
great
man.
stuff that I miss out on.
It's well worth it because there's a lot of stuff I like that just isn't out there in America.
I actually bought this to watch because I don't have a DVD or Blu-ray of it, even though I love it too. So I did rent this on Amazon Prime, and it said HD. And if it was HD, they did nothing to clean it up. It looked fine, but it didn't look like they had done any remastering. And I'm like, really? This is HD? Because
I have a digital copy of it that was in HD. It looks pretty good, but I really want to see this new 4K restoration.
Okay. All right. Nice. You let me know how it turns out.
I will. And I will be sitting. I am a nerd who will analyze it. These blacks are so deep and rich.
Okay. They had this is after the argument in the diner.
Yes. So he goes home and he sees the neighbor's house and he starts moving towards the cellar when all of a sudden this guy comes out of nowhere going, "Hey kid, what you doing?" And this is our introduction to who we will come to know as Jerry's familiar.
Yeah.
Whose name is what?
Billy Cole.
That's it? Yes.
Yeah.
Billy Cole.
Played by Jonathan Stark, who
there's a lot more there's a lot in the novelization about Billy Cole.
Oh, great, because he's I will say this, I do like the fact that in the movie he is never explained.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You're like, what is he?
So here's the thing. Billy Cole has served Dandridge for 113 years. Although not a vampire, he's not human either, but he does eat and drink, and the novel implies he's a necrophiliac.
Wow.
Billy sometimes envied Jerry's powers. Jerry and Billy claim to be business partners. Dandridge deals in antiques. Now, that sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah. Of course. That's why I said this is clearly that Holland, he saw Salem's Lot and he also saw The Rise of the Teen movie. He literally just slammed them together.
Well, Holland talked
because
about
you have a character like Lance Kerwin in Salem's Lot who is Charlie Brewster, only without a girlfriend, mm-hmm. and not as likable, and that's what they did.
Well, and Holland talked about the initial impetus behind this script was to do a modern day Boy Who Cried Wolf, only Boy Who Cried Vampire.
Yeah,
which you can definitely see structurally is what this movie ends up being at a certain point. It's much better than the Boy Who Cried Werewolf, of course. You want to talk about something that's right up there with Frankenstein Island.
I don't want to talk about anything to do with that.
The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, a movie we thought it can't get worse than that. Well, maybe it can.
Jonathan Stark, who plays Billy Cole.
Yes.
The thing is, it's weird. He's one of those guys that his face I recognized, even though he mainly ended up writing and producing and doing things like that. He has a nice long career, especially in TV, when you look at his IMDb. So I don't know where, other than Fright Night, I've seen his face. He looked to me very much like a stand-up comic of the 80s. I like the fact that, again, it's a choice of Holland's to pick a guy who just has kind of a normal face.
Well, okay, one of my favorite things in this movie is the non-exciting blasé vampire.
Exactly.
Like this whole thing, these are just like, these are just guys who moved into the suburbs, and both Sarandon and this guy are like, it kind of look like normal
Sarandon
guys.
Has the typical dark looks, the sort of exotically dark looks. But the way he plays,
how you doing?
So
yeah.
It's like, hi, I'm Dan. How you doing? Yeah, it's like,
I know the blasé evil. I love, man.
Yeah, it's great. And the way they introduce him in the house with where he's sitting in the chair, and fucking great. And his fingernails are back to normal, and they focus on that. Anyway,
great.
It's really great. But so this guy, Billy Cole, is the guy who's around during daylight, basically as the familiar, I'm watching over everything. So he's like, "What you doing there, neighbor? Digging around in our cellars?"
Charlie's mom describes him as a live-in carpenter.
Yeah, and then they make the joke, which is like, he goes, "Oh, so they're gay?"
Yeah.
No, she says, "Oh, that probably means they're gay."
Well, she says
because
with
she was
my
excited,
luck,
like, yeah,
they'll be gay or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, because she's a single lady
Yeah.
and she's like, they're very handsome. The guys moving in next door. She goes, "Oh, but what if they're gay?"
Mm-hmm. So Charlie kind of just backs off and heads home. Then it's that night, and he's looking across from his window into Jerry's window.
Yeah,
and things be getting sexy in there.
yeah. This is not the high class sex worker. This is looks like a teenage girl,
Mm-hmm.
and they are literally playing saxophone music.
I like the way this goes.
It's
though.
very period. It's very
period, but I do like the way this goes from like, oh, kind of voyeuristically sexy to very scary for Charlie.
Well, that's the whole thing, because first it's just sort of like this lady, she takes off her bra, she's topless, and topless Jerry Dandridge comes in, and so they're making out.
Yeah,
and
we're in a
Charlie's kind of like,
Cinemax
dude,
After
I'm about
Dark movie, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I'm about to go to Town, the Bone Zone, and then suddenly, Jerry pops those fangs.
Yeah,
he's got the fangs,
and he doesn't
he's like
bite her.
Back.
He sees Charlie and just kind of, without breaking eye contact with him, just slowly brings.
Yeah,
the
he
shade
knows
down.
Charlie's looking, and he pulls what do you
It's a
call
shade,
it?
right?
The blinds. He pulls the blinds down.
Yeah.
And as he does it, we see his long, scary vampire fingernails, which Charlie focuses on.
Yeah.
And that's a setup for later.
Good scene. It's well done here.
Yeah. And we also, did we miss the part where Billy Cole takes out the previous woman? Or is that the same night?
No, it's this woman that he takes out. It's later this night after this when Charlie looks out again.
Right, but the little purse that Jerry Dandridge says, "You forgot this." The little gold purse belonged to the previous.
Oh, that's interesting.
The sex worker, not the teenager.
That's interesting. So I guess I don't know how this works then. But it is after
Well, it
this
could
scene
just be like that was a bit of evidence that was left behind. So as long as you're getting rid of the teenager, don't forget that purse from the earlier prostitute.
Are clearly pulling out a bagged corpse and put it in the back of the car here.
Yeah, he's got like this kind of they were popular in the 80s, kind of a big Jeep sort of SUV thing. And so loading in what is clearly a garbage bagged corpse.
Well, and also Jerry doesn't just walk out of the house and give this to him. He flies off the roof and lands and goes, "You forgot this purse."
I appreciate. Now, of course, at the end, I remember very clearly the transformation scene at the end of the movie. But I thought this was a smart way to go, Mr. Holland. You're saving your money, and also you're realizing that, generally speaking, vampire into bat transformations don't often work. So instead, he made the camera the bat.
Yeah.
He has the camera up on the ledge of the roof, and then you hear flapping and wind, and then it lands, and then we just see Jerry Dandridge walk out. You don't see a transformation. He just goes, and don't forget this, tosses Billy Cole the purse.
It's very Evil Dead, and I like it.
Oh, yeah, it is a sort of moving steady cam.
Well, I mean, I feel like all these guys in the 80s, whether it be your Landis, Dante, Raimi, now Tom Holland, they're all kind of after the same kind of vibe, I feel like. They're all sort of borrowing from each other, and it's sort of this like notion that hit a bunch of filmmakers at the same time in the 80s to sort of start making left-of-center horror movies.
The technology, Steadicam had just kind of
come
to the fore.
I mean, Carpenter also is part of this because he really revolutionized Steadicam stuff with Halloween.
Yeah.
Like, that movie extensively used the Steadicam in a way nobody's seen.
That movie is one of the first features that actually used Steadicam.
And extensively used, like, almost the whole movie shot in Steadicam.
Yeah, because they're like, this is awesome tech.
And then
look at this tracking shot. Look how smooth this is. I can't even believe it.
And then Sam Raimi started running that Steadicam around.
Sam Raimi could not be stopped out in the woods with his Steadicam.
Nope. No, that guy, I mean, just, you could stop it. Sam Raimi can't be stopped. Period. You just can't stop that guy.
I don't even want to start talking about Sam Raimi because we'll start talking about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and I can't do that right now.
I don't think we ever get any Raimi on this show, unfortunately. I don't think he's ever made a classic monster movie.
He has not.
Yeah, that's a bummer because I love that guy.
We're big fans of Sam Raimi.
Yeah. So Charlie's outside in the bushes now, hiding in the shrubs.
Yeah, like on his hands and knees. He's
Yeah.
peeking out from the shrubs, and I'm not sure why. It's clever symbolism, I guess, but we constantly see Jerry Dandridge eating apples.
This is in the IMDb trivia. This was a
Okay.
Chris Sarandon suggestion. This was his idea because he wanted to link Jerry and bats, so hence the bats eat fruit. I shall always be eating apples.
That's really interesting. I thought it was going to be the more symbolic thing of like, yes, it's evil. It's the tree of knowledge, and I am basically the snake in the garden kind of thing.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
interesting.
yeah, I'll always be.
No, it was according to Chris Sarandon, it was the fruit bat connection.
Fruit bat,
Yeah.
named Eric the
Yeah.
fruit bat. Well, that's
Sarandon
great.
looked at the information that he had researched about bats and concluded that, quote, Jerry had a lot of fruit bat in his DNA. Chris Sarandon apparently did a lot of work on this.
I don't care what work he did because he's fucking great. So
He's so
whatever
good in
gets
this.
you there.
I mean, and he's so good in
then-
everything because obviously Princess Bride he's amazing in as well.
Do we need to also praise him?
Well,
Yeah, I
Tom
think we
Holland
should because he's
Tom
fucking
Holland
great.
will also carry him into Child's Play as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
Which is the other big contribution to horror that Holland made.
Yeah.
Holland's credits are really skimpy.
Well,
as far as
I
actual
was
films
just
made.
looking at his IMDb here because I'm like, I know I've seen other movies he's made, and of course Child's Play, but the in 1987 his next movie after this, really random, is the Whoopi Goldberg vehicle Fatal Beauty.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
It was.
I didn't see it. I saw.
Oh, I've seen it.
I saw Jumpin' Jack Flash.
I think I've seen all of Whoopi's movies, though, to be fair. But
Wow.
it was kind of, they were going like, let's do Beverly Hills Cop with Whoopi,
It's true.
and we'll pair her with one of my favorites, Sam Elliott, who's her partner in that, who, of course, rolls his eyes at all of her antics.
Yes.
But yeah, then it's interesting. Then it's a lot of TV credits following Child's
He did
Play.
write Psycho 2.
Yes.
He didn't direct it, but he wrote Psycho 2, which I do wish no one had ever done a sequel to Psycho, but I have to say, it's not bad.
It's not bad, actually. It is totally watchable. Obviously, it's not Psycho, but
No.
it's okay.
It
Yeah.
was apparently a good enough script that's why it even happened, is that Anthony Perkins was like, I don't want to do a sequel to Psycho. And then he read the script and was like, oh, no, I like this.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
And then he said, let me make 2 more after this. I don't know about that.
No.
The other movie I remember, because it came out when I was a kid and into horror stuff, was Thinner, the Stephen King adaptation.
Thinner. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird
Which
movie.
actually is a decent Stephen
It's
King
not bad.
adaptation.
I remember enjoying it. I haven't seen it in a long time. Unfortunately, during the making of that movie, Tom Holland was stricken with Bell's palsy. I don't remember that. I didn't know about that. That's interesting. Took him more than a year and a half to fully recover from that.
Wow.
Yeah, he is still alive. Tom Holland.
No, yep. There are pictures on the IMDb from fairly recent,
Yeah.
horror movie conventions where he's
Yeah.
hanging out with the cast, and you're seeing like, there's everybody all aged up.
Well, it's interesting, and he keeps getting. It seems like a lot of these days, he's cashing checks from these remakes of his movies. Both Fright Night and Child's Play have been remade in the last. Few
He
years.
did the Fright Night remake.
He didn't do the remake.
I think he wrote it.
No.
He did this. Oh, okay. He got story credit. Sorry,
He got story credit to this movie. Marty Noxon of Buffy the Vampire
Buffy.
Slayer
Yeah,
wrote that movie. You ready for my hot take, extremely controversial opinion?
Ready?
I like that movie more than this one.
It's good. I
Not like
for some
immensely
reason,
more, but I like it. I do. That is the one I go to more.
Fright Night to me is an 80s thing. And one thing that I mean, the remake reimagined some stuff, as it should.
It actually does a lot to make it more modern. I mean, I feel like it does a lot to get away from the 80s.
And actually, I think there's a lot of, and I love this original, but what I was going to say with my updated take is that there's a lot of dumb logic in it, which doesn't mean I don't enjoy it, but I still sit there going, one of the main things is what we're about to get to. When you're convinced there's a real vampire living next door, it's not just about, and you already know from horror movies how to kill vampires, but why would this fairly intelligent young man believe that a Hollywood actor who had played a vampire killer in movies, I mean, and that is the essential story, but why would he ever think that's who you would go to for actual fighting of a vampire? As if, does Charlie not understand that's all fiction and that guy's just an actor? That is such an essential thing to this plot that you just have to accept it, that Charlie somehow believes that a guy's cinematic career would also mean he's an actual expert vampire killer.
Yeah. Now, that's something that the remake does different stuff with. And I know some fans of this movie were upset about that by making Peter Vincent more legitimate in his monster hunting. But to get to your point there, then that was them kind of trying to fix that.
Yes, which that is what I appreciate about a remake.
Well, and
is you're taking raw material that is solid, but you're finding things that were missed or screwed up or maybe weren't solid, and then you improve. You fix logic breaks. I did like the remake, and anything with David Tennant I'm gonna like, but come on.
I do think that the cast of the remake also, and as much as I enjoy
it's
everyone,
an amazing cast.
I mean, Yelchin's incredible, obviously Colin Farrell, David Tennant. But you even have people like Toni Collette as the mother. All right, this character actress is very good, but all of a sudden, holy shit, it's Toni Collette who's bringing a lot to it.
Stop yelling, Jesus.
And if you're gonna cast a weird horror nerd in the 2000s, it's Christopher Mintz-Plasse, of course.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that movie someday on this show, obviously.
We will.
I'm a huge fan of that movie. But regardless of whether I like that one more or not, I just like that it really does take this plot and kind of goes its own direction with it.
Yes.
It's a different aesthetic. It's a different vibe while still staying true.
I'd say, because we talk a lot about the validity of remakes and reboots, or we maybe not on the podcast, but we certainly have in person.
Yeah.
And I think this, what you're talking about is the best kind of remake, which is either improve on or go your own way with is what you should do.
Absolutely.
If you're just out to remake a movie and set it in a different time period that's more contemporary, then that's not what you should be doing.
Right. And we'll talk about, in just a few weeks, the sequel to this movie. Which there is, because there is Fright Night Part 2, which we'll get to.
I know.
And I have not seen in a long time, and how much I enjoy this movie. The fact that I haven't seen it in a long time should maybe speak to its quality.
Enjoy this while we're here.
Yes, this movie's great.
It's great.
So anyway, let's see. The mother's getting concerned because Charlie was spotted out in the shrubs in the middle of the night.
And we need to mention that the reason I brought up the apple is it becomes apparent that obviously Jerry and Bob, I love the fact that our villains are Jerry and Bob.
Well, even that adds to this sort of like passable, blasé kind of like, they're Jerry and Bob and they live next door. Those guys are vampires? Come on.
They know that Charlie is peeking through the shrubs, even while she's calling his name, like, "Where are you, Charlie?" And he rolls the apple at Charlie, like, "We see you. Yeah. We know you're onto us."
Exactly. So Charlie, one thing that I do like about this, in the boy who cries wolf kind of thing, is he's not like, "Oh man, I better not tell anyone." He tries to tell everyone that there's a vampire next door.
I know which, when you add in what I was just talking about with Peter Vincent, who's for some reason his go-to.
Well, because they try to add that scene where he's doing the Fright Night show and he goes, "I believe in vampires."
Yes,
which the script thinks is us going like, well, that's why you would go to him.
Possibly. But I love the fact that though we love Charlie and we love Ragsdale and he seems to be an intelligent kid, all of these choices, maybe Charlie's kind of stupid. Because he does immediately just start running around going, he's a vampire living right next door. Actually, he never has that moment of, I should keep this to myself until I can do something. He actually does
at first. He tells Amy, there's a vampire next door. He goes, I got to go to the cops. She goes, and what? Tell him there's a vampire? It's like, no, they'll never believe that. I'll just say that I saw them with the body of this girl who's,
Yeah, and then leads to another not so smart logic scene. Let's say that you went to the cops and you said, my next door neighbors may have killed that sex worker that you guys are trying to solve the mystery on.
Right.
The police detective is not going to go, okay, hop in my car.
Let's go over there.
And then when we go over there, why don't you roam around the guy's house too? I was like, that does not happen.
But it's all designed so that, because once again, we have Bob going, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing going on here. And
man. Well, this is a great scene because Bob, again, the casting is great. Mm-hmm. They didn't go with like brutish, I serve the master. Instead, it's this guy who's just normal looking, though tall, and he's playing along with it. Like he's like making gestures like, oh, yeah, he's crazy. Yeah. Oh, vampire, watch out. He's doing like fang gestures
because Charlie's keeping it cool for a while, but then at a certain point he goes, and if we go in the basement, there's a coffin where your master is sleeping the sleep of the undead because he's a vampire,
Yeah,
and that's when the detective's like, oh, Christ. Oh, my God, what am I doing,
Yeah, even if the detective believed him about the murder.
It's a potentially valid tip about a murder, and then it becomes, all right, this kid's just screwing around.
This kid's just Looney Tunes.
And this is a character actor who I've seen a lot of things replace the cop here. Art Evans is this actor's name.
Yeah,
who you've seen in
great.
A million things. I most remember him from Die Hard 2, but
Die Harder?
Die Harder, yeah. Die Hard 2, Die Harder. He plays the tech guy, the technical guy in the air control tower.
Yes.
Yeah. He's good. And he's good here as just being, and he's just like, kid, if I ever see you in the police station again. And this is also screenwriting, right? Where they go like, here's why he can't go back to the cops, because now they think he's crazy. So even if he has more evidence, they're not going to believe him. It's getting back to, once again, the Boy Who Cried Wolf structure.
Yeah, it's
that does
me
work
against
for this
them
movie.
because no one believes me.
Well,
maybe
there is someone who will believe him. Let's drive over to the local TV station and talk to Roddy McDowall.
We never know where this is supposed to be.
The book makes it clear.
Where is it?
Where is this?
They say a town name, but they don't say a state.
Hold on. It's all one block of text that has all this. Cleveland.
Okay. Yeah, because at one point Roddy McDowall does say
the suburbs of Cleveland. Yeah.
Hollywood's calling, and I've got a big job. Of course, he's lying, but he's like, yeah, I've got a big job coming up. But I love the idea that this guy was once a movie star, and now he's in Cleveland, and he does local horror.
Let me give you some background here that's in the book. Peter Vincent's real name in the book is Herbert McHoulihy. And his backstory is he once auditioned for a bit part in a horror movie, but got the lead instead. So he changed his name to Peter Vincent. He's been an actor for 25 years. He's moved to Cleveland to host a show, and that's where we find him here.
It answers a lot of the questions you might have about the character.
Well, because he does say,
because I kept going, where is he supposed to be?
Peter Vincent is not his name, but we do not get that. What did I say? It was Herbert McHoulihy?
He only says like it's not even my real name.
Yeah, we don't
is what he says.
We don't get a thing on this. And yes, this was a case where not the studio, but Tom Holland specifically wrote this part for Mr. Vincent Price.
Of course.
Yeah.
Peter Vincent clearly is homage to Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. It's a clever name,
which Holland does say is where he took the names. Yes, of course.
Of course.
But it could have been Vincent Price versus a vampire.
I would be totally down for that. But I will say this.
He would have been campier.
some of my love for this film is now the updated thing is I still love it, but I see the cracks a lot more. It's just my updated brain. And, this is from my childhood kind of, or at least my teen years. And now I can look at it and go, ooh, I don't know if that works. Well, but I still love it.
My love of the remake, though, also adds to some of that where I'm going like, oh, they kind of actually were smarter in the new one where they did that. And so now I'm comparing the two.
But what I will say is the things that will keep this movie in all of our estimations forever is the performances of Roddy McDowall and Chris Sarandon and Geoffreys, Evil Ed.
Yeah.
Not that Amanda and our good friend Ransdale.
But they
it's
don't
not that
have
they're bad, but
they
they're
don't have the showier character parts.
No, they don't. Right. They are great. They are great.
They do a good job of carrying this movie. The actual.
But Roddy
leads.
McDowall. I mean, not that he's a surprise. He's a beloved figure.
Love him.
But in his career, he did not have the Scream movie career. He did not have the horror movie career. He was an ape for a long time. But so this is great. This is him kind of. I mean, he was in some horror movies, but he didn't really go around fighting vampires and shit. This is kind of him mocking lovingly. I can see him doing Peter Cushing here. Like there are parts where it's clearly him.
That when I look through the IMDb, I'm going, did they think about Cushing for this? Because
Cushing would have been very ill.
Would he have?
Very. At this point, 85.
Peter Cushing, he lives past this.
He does live past this, but I don't think he was in the best shape to be in a movie.
What was he doing around this time? Because he
probably making a sandwich. I don't know.
He distinctly said he made a few sandwiches. Yes, during this time. He did a Sherlock Holmes movie just the year before this.
Okay,
1984. Yes, of course. Top Secret. He's in at this time.
Oh,
which he's very funny in.
He actually is very funny.
So he's still, and he's in another movie in 86.
He had the constitution to actually work out that whole backwards sequence. That must have been crazy.
So he's still around for sure at this time, and people are sort of using him in that Top Secret way. But anyway, just the thought doesn't. The fact that the first thought was Vincent Price is interesting because I feel this character is more Cushing inspired in terms of the kinds of movies he was in and stuff. Then it is that Vincent Price was creepy in the movies, whereas Cushing was often the guy fighting against evil like this.
Very true.
The great vampire killer.
But it's possible that tone-wise,
I'm trying to figure out why Vincent Price turned this down.
Quite possibly wanted it to be slightly bigger, slightly camp.
It's the reverse of what we were saying, which is Price felt his health was declining at this point, and he felt he was. Obviously, he will come back for his final role in Edward Scissorhands, but he felt he wasn't up to this part.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
But what is it? The year before, his voiceover on Thriller.
So good.
Jesus.
Yes. The Creatures of the Night.
I think it's one of the best raps ever. Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is soon at hand. Or something.
I want to find this quote that I saw here where he was talking about, they have Roddy McDowall talking about, well, obviously it was supposed to be a Vincent Price type, but he talks about that he had a lot of respect for Vincent Price as an actor, and he said, no, my Peter Vincent was a bad actor, unlike Vincent Price. He goes, don't lump Peter Vincent in with Vincent Price. I have a lot of respect for what Vincent did in those movies, whereas I was playing a much worse actor.
Which is, I don't think he even needed to say that, because the thing is that even Vincent Price loved mocking and parodying the stuff he did.
Well, we've also talked about Price is the reason those movies are watchable. Those are bad movies, but Price is always, excellent and watchable in them.
Because he was great.
So wonderful.
And Roddy is great here.
Doing both bad, over-the-top B-movie actor and sad old the you talk about the tinge of sadness that's here is this desperate sad guy who longs for the days when he was the big star.
It's just so cheesy, but the whole bit where they go to his apartment and there is like, like he did with the mirror, and they name a movie, and he goes,
I believe it's
"Oh,
Orgy
yes."
of the Dead, which is actually a real movie, which is interesting.
No,
Orgy of the Vampire. It's Orgy of the something.
Yeah, it's Orgy of the Damned is what
Orgy
they say
of the
in this
Damned.
movie.
That's
Orgy
what-
of the Dead is an Ed Wood
Is
film,
the Ed Wood,
but
yeah.
I'm sure
Orgy
it was
of
a
the
knowing
Damned.
wink.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Orgy of the Damned. Yeah. And he still has the prop.
Yeah, but he holds that statue, goes, "Oh yes," it is all wistful. He goes, "That was one of my favorite roles."
Yeah. Oh.
You're like, "God damn it,
McDowall, man, because McDowall, he's a good actor. That's the thing, where he can play the levels of this.
I don't think he gets enough credit. Roddy McDowall.
I agree.
People tend to mock because he did do a lot of showy, campy stuff, and he was big. He could go big, but man, he could do it.
This movie
Drama, comedy.
shows the levels. He is playing the camp, but then he's playing a very real guy who then at the end of the movie is forced to become the persona that he is, which is great. I mean, that's the thing about
Dude, when he actually kills Evil Ed, and it's just he's shocked that it worked, but also the regret that he has taken a life, and his eyes are watering. And you're like, God damn. I didn't know I was going to get all soppy here.
Can I also say one of my favorite later performances of Roddy McDowall, and was big for me as a kid, he was the voice of the Mad Hatter on Batman the Animated Series.
And he was great.
He was so good as Jervis Tetch.
Oh.
Yeah. The guy,
all right.
Look, he was never bad. Even if he was in something bad, he was great in it. Who could forget Tales of the Gold Monkey, which we have talked about here before, was another favorite of mine.
As Bon Chance Louis.
Yes. Wonderful.
And I will just say this. You've been listening to Rodcast, the Roddy McDowall podcast.
We get it. You know what the problem with that title, though, is we get a lot of people tuning in for different reasons when we're talking about Rodcast. Yeah. And I don't just mean Rod Stewart fans.
It's the night. Yeah,
Wake
that would be
up,
totally
Maggie. Yeah. Man could never sing. Never understood how he had a career when he could never sing.
Who?
Rod Stewart. Everything was, hey, I mean, he could sing.
He had a great rock voice. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're like a druggy person who takes a lot of drugs.
No, come on. I don't know. I never liked his voice. Let me say that, maybe.
Well, there's that. There are some voices that like people have a specific relationship to. Took me a long time, and he's one of the greatest rock vocalists of all time. Took me a long time for me to actually like Robert Plant's voice. Ooh. And Geddy Lee of Rush, his voice used to be like,
wow. Now see,
nails on a chalkboard.
That's where I think that's crazy. So yeah, I guess it is just to each their own.
And eventually I came around to,
they're both amazing.
All right, it's some great music. And
God, yeah, they're amazing. Also, another thing I see here, just as I'm scrolling through, and then we'll get back to the movie and get off of Rodcast. I do distinctly remember him as Mephistopheles on Fantasy Island.
I do too. Yeah. I always love the fact that Mr. Rourke had a satanic arch nemesis who wore a mirror reverse suit, where the suit was black, but the tie was white. Like Mr. Rourke had the white suit with the black tie.
And I think both you and I latched onto that for the same reason, which is his very comic booky. He has his arch nemesis who is the opposite of him in design. But
that was later seasons. That was them like going.
Oh, that was the later seasons. The later seasons of Fantasy Island are pure chaos.
Yeah, it's like, let's give Rourke some backstory, because all he does is, act like God.
And Ricardo Montalban was like, please, no, I love how easy this gig is.
It's so easy. Smiles, everyone. Smiles.
Yes. Okay. We're never going to get to the end of this thing. He goes to Peter Vincent. Well, actually,
he meets him at the TV station.
Yes, he does that. Just as he's been fired from the TV station.
I know, it's one of those another convenient things.
No one is interested in vampires anymore.
It's great where he just goes. It's not like he's even thrown that a teenager's walking up to him. He goes, "What do you want me to sign?" He's like,
Yes.
"No. Here's the thing. I
What?
need your help
What do you,
in
what do you
defeating a
want?
vampire."
What is
He's
it?
like,
Huh? A
he's like,
vampire?
well, yeah.
Okay, and he kind of writes about it like crazy.
He's like, "Oh, you cuckoo kid. Well, nice talking to you. Gotta go."
Yeah. So then I guess without that he goes to Evil Ed,
Yeah.
who's like, well, here, take this cross, and don't you worry, because the vampire can't come in unless invited by the owner of the house. Cut to he comes home. And his mom goes, "Look who I've specifically says invited into our house."
It's actually I don't think she says that, because he's the one that gets to say that. He's like, he later goes, "You didn't think I would show up uninvited, did you?"
Yeah.
And he's looking right at Charlie like,
I think she
But
says.
it's a
I think she
great
does say,
reveal.
"I invited the new neighbor over," or something like that. She says,
Yeah, it's a little bit of that, but it is a great, because it's immediate after he leaves Evil Ed's. He comes home, and she's
where
like,
I like
"Oh,
the thing.
we have a guest."
Yeah.
And Dandridge is in the chair, and we only see his hand, and oh, it's great.
Aren't you going to shake his hand, Charlie? You know, it's all good stuff. But hang on, Columbo, get off my notes. Okay.
Columbo, get off the notes.
He just sits on my notes, and then I can't look at him because then I have to pay attention to him. So let's see. So yeah. Let's see. So he's in the house. Oh yeah. Well, then he's in the house.
Yeah. He can come in anytime he wants.
He's in the house, and this is where the mask is slipping now, or he purposely slips, and he's like, "Hey man," basically he's like, "Hey man, don't fuck with me, all right?"
Yeah.
And he throws him into this closet, which is pretty nasty. And then to show that he's not safe, he rips open the window that Charlie had nailed shut without any issue, almost like, "You fucking idiot."
Yeah, he's doing all this threatening, which is pretty amazing, because it's in the house where the mom's there, but she's not aware of what's going on.
She does eventually go, "What's going on in there?"
Yeah, because he's basically going, I can come in anytime I want. I can kill your mom. I can take care of you or your little friends. And he does threaten Charlie by bringing him over the ledge of that window, which has like the nails in it and stuff. He's like going, and he goes, "But the thing is, I don't even want to kill you, Charlie. Just leave me alone." He's like, you can just stay here.
Right.
Just ignore me, and it'll be live and let live.
And Charlie instead decides he's going to make the move to pull the cross on him.
Yep.
And then that forces him. That cross does nothing, because we'll find out later, of course, and as we know from other vampire movies, you must have faith in the cross for it to work.
This is inconsistent in the movie, but they do give one line of dialogue that kind of forgives it. But yeah, he's trapped, and his hand is reaching. This is an odd thing, though. His hand is reaching for something while he's being dangled out the window, and he grabs out of like a mug of pencil holder. He grabs a pencil and slams it through Dandridge's hand.
Yeah.
And Dandridge, the vampire, acts like this is a big thing, and it actually smokes. And I'm like, what? It's just a number 2 pencil. Where does that come
Something
in?
about all I could think is there's something with like the wood of the wooden cross and the wood of the pencil. I don't know.
But I mean, does that mean you could stake a vampire anywhere? Don't worry about the heart. You could stick him through an arm, and he goes and he rears back,
and it at least hurts him. I guess I don't know.
Maybe so. But he does rear back, and he's starting to change too, because his face is gone.
This is the first look we get of the vampire face, which is good makeup, man. I like the design.
Yeah, and this is one of the first movies we've seen where this becomes a thing.
Yeah.
Where becoming a vampire isn't just about fangs appearing. This is like, oh, you get demonic, and you get he gets the claws. He's got the fingernails back. So he's very angry.
We'll talk about this a lot more when we get to Lost Boys.
Oh, God damn it. I still believe, John.
Yeah, great movie. I
can't wait for that one.
We have a guest for that one who demanded to be on that episode.
Yay!
So let's see though. Yeah. So he leaves, but then he does call and threatens him some more, and he just tosses in a, "I've destroyed your car, by the way, Charlie.
Yeah.
So go fuck yourself, kid."
Yeah, he calls him and he goes, "I'm watching you right now. I can see you, Charlie. And also fucked up your car."
Mm-hmm. The next time now Amy and Ed go to Charlie's, and his room is covered in garlic and candles, and he's literally like whittling the cross or the stake. He's shaving down a piece of wood to a stake.
This is crazy because he's like, "Well, I'm preparing. I'm probably going to die anyway, but I'm going to go out fighting."
Mm-hmm.
And he's got garlic up. He's got crosses aplenty. He's got stakes. What I don't understand is the candles. Like, is that just for atmosphere? They're not going to help you against a vampire, but whatever. It looks
screams
cool.
of a set decorator going like, "Well, we need something more. I don't know. Candles will give it." Yeah, like I don't think you're supposed to think about the candles too much.
It also indicates, and not that
He's
I
gonna
mind
light
it,
him
but it
up,
does
man.
indicate that Charlie's entire reference points are just movies.
Yeah.
And so he set directed his own room.
Yeah. And this is the moment where he's like, "I'm gonna go kill him," and Amy and Evil Ed are kind of like, "Uh-oh, maybe just wait on that for a second, because that's murder, Charlie." So this is where they think, let's go back to Peter Vincent, and maybe he can talk some sense into him because he's Charlie's hero, and he can convince him not to
believe
murder
Charlie
his neighbor
yet.
Right.
Yeah, so they're like, "Oh God, our friend is losing his mind."
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty smart. They go to his hero and say, "Hey, if we pay you," they basically, "Can we pay you to?"
I love this.
Put on like
because he's like, "I'm not Hollywood's." This is where he says, "Hollywood's calling," even though we saw he just got an eviction notice.
Yes, we see that he got an eviction notice. We know he's not doing well.
And so, and then she goes, "We can pay you." He goes, "With what money?" And she's like, "I have a $500 savings bonds." And he just instantly goes, "I'll take it." Love the way Roddy McDowall plays that. Like, "Oh yes, I'll do it then."
He goes, "I'll take it." And what is it you need me to do?
Yeah.
And they do. They just convince him. It's like, we need you to basically put on a skit where you prove somehow that his neighbor Dandridge is not a vampire.
And they even call Jerry and get him in on it, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
and it's like, "Could we do this and come over to your house and do this?" And then we're not hearing Jerry's side of it, but we hear Vincent go, "Oh, okay, so no crosses."
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's born again. It'd be sacrilegious, is what the excuse
he's
is.
a born again Christian.
How about
so
holy water? No to holy water. Well, it would just be tap water, not real. Okay, then it's good. Yes, perfect.
Yeah. That would make me suspicious, but no, it doesn't to them. And he's like, "And could you come over tomorrow after 6?"
That's when he'll be home. He'll just be getting home. Yeah, after that, he's out all day.
It has nothing to do with when the sun is going down.
Right. And then it does cut to Jerry, who's talking to Bob, going like, "Well, this will solve all our problems, man."
Yeah.
So they bring Charlie over to Jerry's house, and Peter Vincent shows up, and he's like, "Well, hey, let's put the crosses away for the moment, and first we need to prove he's a vampire."
It's kind of sad because Charlie is fully believing this is what this is about.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Where's your vampire hunting kit? Where are the crucifixes?" He goes, "We didn't really need them, and besides, we're not."
Well, like he says, they're in the car. We can go get them later. But first we must prove. And he goes, "Wait,
this is a test."
What?" He goes, what do you mean? If we prove it, if we go in there, he's just going to kill us." It's like, "No, it'll be fine. I'll protect you," I believe he says at one point. I'll be here to protect you. Yes, the great vampire hunter, Peter Vincent and such.
Yeah, he's playing it up, and he's in his movie costume.
Yes, which I do like that he's put on the costume.
Like he's got the cool.
Well, and actually, the weird thing is Roddy McDowall is actually playing older than he is here. Even.
Yes, he is so obviously been. Yeah. His hair's been painted gray. His eyebrows have been painted gray. It's interesting. I mean, he was old at the time, or at least he was in advanced years, but not as old as his character should be. So they had to make him look older.
Right. He's in his 50s, but he really should be like in his 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
And it works though. I mean, it's obvious, but Roddy McDowell's selling it, man.
Roddy McDowall sells it all day long, and who's buying? We are.
So we go into the house, and immediately Jerry's like, hello, hello. And then he sees Amy and goes, hello.
Oh, God, we have to bring this up. This is another thing I don't like.
And something I will point once again, the 2010 movie definitely excises.
Yeah. So earlier, when the detective came over and brought the accuser, Charlie, to the house, Charlie was looking around at all the stuff in in Dandridge's home, finds a painted portrait that looks an awful lot like Amy, but it's an old-timey portrait.
And he even says, even Ragsdale actually goes, that looks like Amy.
Yeah, and I think that was literally them going, in case no one gets it, because the hairstyle's different, we're going to have him actually say, this looks like Amy.
It screams of, they shot this close-up, and then they ADR'd a line, like, is what it seems like to me.
So they do this whole thing where Dandridge is like, hey, everybody, welcome to my home, and he sees Amy, and he's like...
Couldn't he just be taken with her in general? And we would have accepted it if he had been like, hello.
But this is a guy that we saw with one of the hottest sex workers in the world, and then we saw him with an extremely... So the idea of the girl next door being the one that the immortal vampire goes, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean...
I think it would just have been out of spite instead of love.
Right.
For me, it makes better sense. He's just like going, this is who you care about? Guess who I'm going to get? I'm going to take her from you because you have caused me, you're an inconvenience.
Yeah. So he gives
That's better than you are my reincarnated lost love, which we've seen way too much of.
Horror movies love that, man.
They love it. They can't get enough of a reincarnated lost love.
They really do. Although I do love the Coppola Draculas we'll get to, and does that. But he gives him the vial of holy water, and he assures everyone, yes, I talked to so-and-so down at St. Vincent's, and he blessed it himself, Father, whatever. Yes,
Father, and he does an Irish accent. Yeah. Father O'Leary down at St. Vincent's, he blesses water himself.
And he goes in,
he hands it off.
Just remember, one drop of this would burn him, so if he's going to drink it, imagine. So he swigs it down, and nothing happens. He goes, well, see, there you go, no harm, no foul, he's not a vampire. On our way!
Yep. And he also winks to Dandridge when he hands him the vial.
Yeah, right. It's
and
holy
like,
water.
I got it.
Wink, wink.
Tap water.
Yeah. So there it goes. But of course, on his way out, he drops his. He opens up the mirror.
The mirror that was the prop from Orgy of the Damned.
And he sees that Jerry does indeed have no reflection,
which causes him to drop the prop, and the mirror breaks.
Yeah.
And he covers pretty well. I mean, it is like, oh, I'm so clumsy.
Yeah.
But he's really shook.
And so they run out of the house, and then as Jerry's falling, that he steps on the shard and sees the shard of mirror, and now he's like, oh shit.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Even the old man's onto me now.
Yeah.
And Vincent very quickly, of course, is running to his car. And the teens know something happened.
It's a very Simpsons, I think I just have to get something out of my car.
And they run after him, and Charlie's like, be honest, what happened? You're really messed up. What happened?
Yeah.
And finally he goes, fine.
Yeah.
Fine, I'll tell you the truth. He goes, he has no reflection.
Yeah. Bye.
So he's convinced.
And off he goes. But his instinct is to run, because he's not fearless vampire killer Peter Vincent.
He's just an actor.
Meanwhile, they're walking. Everybody's walking home. I guess they're walking Amy home, or because we were just next to. And Ed's like, we should cut through that
first
dark...
Ed's like, I'm gonna head on home. It's like, and Charlie goes, no, first we're walking Amy home.
Right.
Ungentlemanly.
And he's like, we should cut through this dark alley. And he's like, no, that's a bad idea. That's where something bad's going to happen.
I love how suburban this thing is until they need parts of a city. Mm-hmm. It's like they're in the suburbs, but suddenly they are somewhere downtown where there's an actual dark alley with like fog and shit. You're like, what?
So he, and then Ed is like, well, I'm going down that alley. And then Ed pretends that he's been bit by a vampire.
Yes, he does this sort of fake out where he does the whole screaming thing of, got me, he's biting me. And then he laughs, I got you idiots.
So, and they're like, you suck, and they leave him in the alley, where then Jerry does actually show up to recruit Ed.
Yeah, this is very cool, and it's a good scene between the two of them where he's like he goes, dude, there's nothing to be afraid of. He goes, I know what it's like being an outsider. Are they doing some sort of like veiled thing of like, Ed, I know that you're gay.
I mean, they could be. Also, though,
he goes, I know what it's like to be different. He goes, I know that you get picked on, bullied, but I'm going to make that sure that never happens to you again.
Yeah. Here's some information about Jerry.
I'm ready.
From the book. According to the book, Jerry's at least 400 years old.
That's insane.
He's been the first to publicly claim to the vampire community that chemical additives upped blood's nutritional value to the undead. Interesting. I don't know. Dandridge is highly rated in Vampire Society. He comes from Transylvania originally, and here's the key to this, and I think more so to Amy later, can implant psychic commands into people's minds, which we do see him do, but it's not expressly stated in the movie.
That's true, and that's really just a fancy way of talking about the kind of enchantment thing that vampires are supposed to do anyway.
Right.
Plant psychic suggestions in people's minds.
So yes, that is from the. So he's Transylvanian and a hotshot in the vampire community.
He's an up and comer.
Yeah.
He's got bold new ideas about blood intake.
Oh, that Dandridge, he's a real go-getter.
He's a real go-getter.
Yeah. I just love the idea
and a mean motor scooter.
I just love the idea of he's highly respected in the vampire community.
Dude, I want to read this novelization. It's given me so much more.
Well, look, I'm always on board. I want to see the vampire community. I always love the idea of vampire society.
I do too.
Yeah, that's always one of my favorite things.
So
we don't see what Ed's reaction to this is, which is kind of a nice. We know, of course, that when we see him later, but there is sort of a nice. I don't know what's happening.
You know what cracks me up about this is that it's implied because of the way these scenes unfold that he gets turned into a vampire immediately. Mm-hmm. Because later the same night he's knocking on Vincent's door.
That will be in between though. Jerry follows Amy and Charlie, and it leads to this chase into this nightclub.
This is also nuts because they're like, oh shit, he's onto us. And they're like, there's an open club. We can't get in because we're teenagers. Mm-hmm. They go down the alley. I love that this thing is a dance club that apparently also has a restaurant. So there's a kitchen.
Yeah.
And the kitchen has an open window at waist level high right on this alley. So they're able to duck into the open window of a restaurant attached to a nightclub. And you got the chef going, you can't come in here. And then chases them into the dance club part. And it's now, this is where I was like going, Jesus Christ, the 80s. Oh my God, I have lived this. And yeah, it's a cool dance club where people are dancing to 80s music. I was surprised to see a Devo song on the soundtrack.
Yeah. And so this is where Jerry ends up hypnotizing Amy, and he ends up taking her.
Yeah, he stalks her across the dance floor and then dances very seductively with her. Yeah. I also love that if you have been entranced by a vampire, this is what this movie tells us, your hairstyle will change.
Yeah, I know. But I like, and so, yeah, Charlie tries to confront him, and he gets knocked around. And then these two bouncers come up going, hey, whoa, pal, you got to go. And Jerry just uses his claws and slices this dude's throat open.
This is a badass scene. Of course, man. It's also, wait a minute, wouldn't Jerry Dandridge want to kind of be a little under the radar? This is a full dance floor.
It's one of those things where I agree, but this is what I want to see in a vampire movie.
I know. He slashes the dude's throat open with his fingernails like a karate swipe, and then tosses the body and it just slides across the wall. It's pretty badass.
It's great.
He lays waste to these bouncers, and he has absconded with Amy.
Yeah, he does. He sends. Well, I like he slashes one guy's throat, then he grabs the other guy and punctures his throat and pushes him like where
Yes.
he did the point where his body slides across the floor and everybody's running out of here screaming. And yes, in the chaos, he's able to abscond with Amy.
Yes, that's right.
So that happens, and
That happens.
meanwhile, Ed has come to kill Peter Vincent. We'll find out. Although he knocks on the
but
door.
he
He's
does
like,
the innocent like knock on the door.
"Oh help!
and-
There's a vampire after me." He says,
Yeah,
and this is great because this tells us some stuff about Peter Vincent, who is packing his bags to flee in terror. But this kid is in active danger. He does let him in.
Yes.
And so he lets him in, and he's like, "Look, he bit me," and he shows on his neck that he's been bitten. Oh dear! And then he comes after Peter.
The thing that is just again, Geoffreys' performances, it's just not like anything you've seen, and that the high-pitched giggle that he uses first to show that he's a nerd. That's what it first is.
Yeah.
But then the high-pitched giggle is also, I've been turned, I'm evil. When you see something with those huge vampire teeth just giggling like a demented child, you're like, oh God, that adds a layer of real unease. Where he's like going, and he's taunting him. I'm like, wow, this is good stuff. Once Ed is actually evil, that is scary. And plus the makeup is good. The makeup
really
is
good.
quite good.
And then the way he gets out of this, he grabs that cross and burns his face with it, man.
Yeah.
Nice.
He presses the cross against Ed's forehead and it burns. So
Nice.
later on, Dandridge says the line, this is the out. He says, don't you know, you have to have faith for that to work on me.
That's it.
Is what he said.
That's the key. He's
so
powerful.
essentially,
Ed
everyone
isn't.
else that does get burned,
Yeah.
he has enough faith, or they are weak enough vampires that even the symbol itself, whether or not faith is backing it, will still burn them. But Dandridge is so old, so powerful, that unless you are a born-again Christian or really feeling it, feeling the spirit, it's going to have no effect.
Yes. No, and I like that.
Works.
That's some nerd writing is going like, wait a minute, wait. Oh no, wait, I got it. Like.
But it also means that Charlie's faith is pretty strong because until the key moment with Peter Vincent and the cross, anytime Charlie shows him the cross, Dandridge is like, backing away in actual
fear. Thing too, like where I look at it, is it faith in Christianity itself or faith in the power of the symbol against evil? You know what I mean?
Well, they don't address that.
No,
we never know if that means
because that's kind of
like...
how I take it in the secular manner of it is my faith that this will protect me more than specifically in the faith of.
Yeah, well, it could just be this represents light, purity, and goodness, and maybe it needs you need it as a focal point
because
whether or not it's about the
that
actual
would also explain the
sacrifice and resurrection of Christ.
Because I think that more explains why suddenly Peter Vincent can have that faith and it works. It's more about I believe in this symbol against you than.
Well, yes, yeah. I doubted it because I've been in too many movies and it seems like a fake thing, but now I've seen it actually can hurt you as an actual power. Yeah.
Well, because I don't think in that
if you watched
2 minutes of scene, Peter Vincent has accepted Jesus as his personal Lord and Savior.
You didn't see the end credit scene. Apparently, you didn't stay through where you see him getting baptized.
Yeah.
He's like,
dude's
powerful.
Quoting the Bible all over part 2. So he burns him, and Ed leaps out the window, is what the scene is. Let's see. So,
and again, the performance is great. I like how Ed goes, "What did you do to me?" It's like, he's offended that the old man who he was about to slay and drink his blood, he's like, how could you do that to me? I'm Ed. I'm just a kid. And you burned my forehead, you dick.
Yeah, exactly. So, Charlie then shows up and says, Peter, you gotta help me. Now you know they're vampires. Yeah. Trust me. And he's like, I just can't, Charlie. I'm sorry. I am not the fearless vampire killer. And he's gonna run away, which of course is classic screenwriting thing to then set up
of course
that he will show up in the third act and help him.
Yeah. But we need at this point Charlie to go, then it's all up to me.
It's all up to me. Meanwhile, Amy awakes in Jerry's house, sees said portrait of his long-lost lover that looks like her, and she's like, what the hell? But he's using that hypnovision and gets her to get undressed here.
Well, I mean, this movie being of its time period and also walking a line of like, this is for kids ish. Like this, I mean,
as much as an R-rated horror movie can be.
Yeah, this is essentially, he takes her virginity, and they make it both. She's compelled. She's also into it, and they make the biting of the neck. Obviously, is like the symbol of like your innocence is gone, and she's doing the like she gets bitten. She's like, oh, and it's all like, oh, sexy time, and they get sexy.
They get sexy. Like I said, this is yet another thing, obviously, that's excised from the 2010 version because it doesn't play. Now it's just a rape, and it's not as fun. It damages the fun.
This is like a 16 or 17-year-old girl.
Yeah,
so
it's an underage girl being raped by an ancient entity. It's not, like I said, it kind of damages the fun time we're all having.
Yeah,
when you put any kind of real thought to it, especially if it was.
Tony Scott saw this movie, and this particular scene he really liked.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote Holland a letter that said, "Where were the blowing fabrics? Where was the neon blue lighting and the wind blown fabrics? Other than that, I really enjoyed it."
Yeah. I mean, and they leave it, we get the idea of what's going on. They don't get.
No, you see hip thrusting. What version did you see, man?
I saw penetration, man. That's all I know.
Amanda Beers wouldn't show anything, but it was weird that she's like, yeah, we'll go ahead and have real sex.
It's unsimulated sex, but she does keep her top on the whole time. Very odd decision on her part.
Odd choices all the way around.
Yeah, really questionable. Also, once again, really made it less fun for me when I just like, man, he's really railing her here.
He's really railing her. There's no way to make that sound right, which is why you say it. Yeah, it's supposed to sound bad.
Exactly. So Charlie goes to Jerry's, ready to perhaps die trying to save Amy from this vampire. When, yes, out of nowhere, Peter Vincent does show up, ready for action.
It's great.
He shows
Who doesn't
up, and
like
this
the last-minute hero
it's
reveal.
Great, and he does show up with his arsenal of vampire-killing weapons, and it is go time. We've got about a half hour left in this thing. We have firmly entered Act 3 now, and we're ready.
The rest of the movie essentially is taking place right here in the Dandridge home,
and it's good stuff, man. It's a great series of setups and reversals. Like it's a tight screenplay, when it comes down to this stuff. It works
with the logic problems that we've discussed. Yeah. But
so they come in, and Jerry is waiting for them. Though he was ready for them, and
and he gets his great line, his great entrance.
Oh my God! When he goes, I have it here in this exact word, so I get it. Welcome to Fright Night for real.
Well, the whole thing is that when he met Vincent earlier, he does the whole thing of he shakes his hand and goes, and Mr. Vincent, he goes, I'm a big fan. I've seen all of your films. Mm-hmm. I found them quite amusing.
Yes, he did say that, yeah.
But the great thing about Jerry Dandridge is Chris Sarandon's performance is constantly, he deflects so perfectly. He's been around 400 years. He has no accent. He's just like an American guy. And well, I'm sorry, my neighbor feels that way. He's an imaginative youngster. He's just like, and he's hanging out with the mom and is like, well, thank you very much it was wonderful meeting you. You would never believe. So the whole thing of now he's mocking and comes out and does Peter Vincent's line from the TV. Mm-hmm. Welcome to Fright Night. And then he adds, for real.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's good stuff. I mean, Sarandon across the board is crushing it in this movie.
That's what I'm saying. This movie is lifted by Sarandon and McDowall and Geoffreys.
And he busts out the cross on him, and he just laughs and then grabs it and crushes it.
He crushes the cross and says, "You idiot."
Yeah. But Charlie,
you gotta
but as
faith.
You said, Charlie busts out his, and he is like, "Hey, yikes."
Yeah, he backs away. And it's interesting. When he goes into vampire mode, Chris Sarandon does go over the top, but I'm still down for it.
Well,
And he starts, like, the voice he uses here is like,
yeah, it works because I think because he's been playing it so grounded
right.
before, the juxtaposition when he goes into supervillain vampire mode, I think works. If he had been playing it the whole time like this, it would have been annoying.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But he picks and chooses the right moments, and he's full on vampire now, and I'm there.
It's great. But then Bob comes out and hits Charlie, knocks him out, and he loses the cross. And that's when Peter's like, fuck! And runs over. He runs over to Charlie's house to call the police.
Yeah.
But the phone line is cut. So he goes upstairs to find Mrs. Brewster, but does not find Mrs. Brewster. Instead finds Evil Ed in a Raggedy Ann wig?
Yeah, this is so weird because, again, unless Peter Vincent's just blind or stupid, he sees a body in the mom's bed, and the covers are totally pulled up except for what is clearly red yarn hair. It's not even like it's a wig; it's red yarn, like Raggedy Ann. But he still, like, nudges, like, I'm sorry, but Mrs. Brewster, and then of course Evil Ed pops up wearing a Raggedy Ann wig with the big fangs. He's like, she's not here, it's me, and attacks.
Yeah. And it's great. These two fight and struggle, and then eventually when they go out into the hallway, Ed turns into a wolf.
Oh man. I mean, you kind of have to love it because we're getting, vampire transformations.
Yeah,
there was
man.
even the strong implication of the mistransformation in the alley scene, which I was all for.
Yes.
But so we hear growls, we hear Ed becoming a wolf. We don't see it, but then in the hallway, Peter Vincent, who's trying to escape, is suddenly a wolf bounds after him, flashing red eyes that are animated.
Yeah.
I do think this is hilariously overdone because the slow-mo on this makes it look like that hallway is about half a mile long.
It does. The slow motion doesn't do any favors here to anything.
It takes the wolf apparently 35 minutes to get from the bedroom to Peter Vincent. But Peter Vincent had fallen against the railing of the stairs, and he has one of the rails that's been broken, and the wolf leaps.
Yeah.
He comes up with that rail, which impales the wolf.
Oh, yeah, not just stakes. Full on goes through him, impales him. It's
goes
great.
through him as he goes over and then down the stairs and hits the floor and whimpers.
Yeah.
And then and Peter Vincent's stunned because that was clearly like, well, that worked. I didn't know it would. And you watch the injured wolf with the post through it, like foundering on the floor.
And they're going for the Howling or American Werewolf transformation, but in reverse this time, turning back to human.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time on it, and
It's similar pacing to those things where they really want to show this makeup and technology.
Yeah, and you think maybe it didn't need to go on that long, but it's still good makeup, and it's still a good scene, mainly because of you're hearing the wolf sounds become Ed's voice, and he's in pain, and you're watching Peter Vincent go, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, it's like, this is, you would hope, oh, I killed it, it's dead. No, he's suffering.
Yeah.
He's trying to pull the stake out. It's just sad.
It's really an interesting scene of, like, oh yeah, it actually kind of sucks to kill things, even if it is justified by their evil. It's still unpleasant. Right. It's an unpleasant business. Monster hunting. It always is. Meanwhile, and this adds more to the theory about him doing this for spite than the reincarnated lover thing, is the way that Jerry dumps Charlie in the same room as now vampire Amy and leaves him a stake, like, oh, you might need this.
Yeah, it is a total dick move where he goes, yeah, I'll give you a fighting chance. You're not going to win, but here you go. Here's a stake, and good luck with that. Locks the door and basically waits. He and Bob are like not even, upset. They just like hang out because the old man ran away, and they're pretty sure that Amy's going to wake up and feed immediately on her old boyfriend. They're good.
They leave him steak. She's a vampire now. But
With
Peter,
longer hair. Even longer hair
even
now.
longer hair and fake prosthetic breasts.
Yes.
Interesting choice. And apparently
You mean perfect, awesome choice?
in the novel, apparently there is a thing that talks about though she's turned back to human at the end. The book makes clear she kept the vampire boobs.
The book includes that?
Yeah, and Charlie's like, all right.
Are you
I'm like,
serious?
I'm really glad that's not in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
No, I'm not as excited to read that because it just seems you could have just done the novel without even mentioning that.
I just love the
because I
idea
didn't
of-
see it as being so. There's not like a transformation scene. It's not like suddenly you see worm. So you could
the
just
book
take
kind
it
of
as
implies
now
that
she's
is
in
what's
a
happened.
see-through
Yeah.
thing.
The book sort
Wow.
of is like, damn. And Charlie's like, all right. Look,
Charlie's afraid for his life, but he still got to admit she got that shit. Damn.
I just like the idea about, all right, we got rid of all the other vampire stuff, but she kept that sweet rack.
that is
Just
wrong.
like, that should not be
That
in
is
there, man.
wrong.
That should not be in there.
Nope.
So, let's see. Yeah, so she's turning into a vampire. Meanwhile, Peter Vincent has entered the house, and he's like, all right, Charlie, make some noise, and I'll bust this door down, which I like this whole thing where he's going, oh, please, God, no, let me out of here.
Yeah, he's raising a ruckus and banging and shouting.
Yeah.
And then they cut back to Jerry and Bob, and Jerry's like, well, I guess Amy woke up.
Yeah. And so Peter,
assuming that he's being killed.
Peter gets the thing open, and I this is the acknowledgement in the dialogue I like about stuff we've talked about, where it's like, he's like, she's a vampire, Peter. Is there any way she can be saved? He goes, well, everything in the movies about vampires been right so far, so sure, yeah, probably.
It's like, yeah, we just need to kill her sire. Or we just got to kill the guy who made her.
Seems like the movie's
before
got
dawn.
Seems like the movie's got everything else right about vampires, so why not that too?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
So yeah, they anyway, they come out and they're confronted by Bob, and Peter pulls a piece on him.
Yeah, they did set the gun up earlier, where amongst all of his vampire stuff, he also had a gun, and they were like, "What's that for?" He's like, "Well, you know, they sometimes work with normal people, and you got to be prepared."
And dude, Roddy McDowall just capping this guy is awesome.
Yeah,
he just puts
it's
bullet
like it's
through
not
him.
about like I have doubts about this. He just pulls the gun, shoots Bob in the middle of the forehead.
I love it, man. Of course, Bob gets back up because what is Bob?
We do not know.
We do not know. And yeah, he's some kind of zombie adjacent thing, maybe?
Zombie adjacent. I was also thinking possibly homunculus.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to use the word. I'll use it.
I would
Because
use it, my
when
friend.
he's dripping green
Yeah.
stuff
That's cool.
instead of blood later, you're like, and then he decomposes so quickly.
Yeah. I like when we get to that. It's a very Indiana Jones kind of death.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, they're like, we spent the money. You're going to see this. You're going to see all this.
Yeah, it's good.
He
man.
is going to melt away in front of your eyes.
Yeah, because when he gets staked, that's what happens to him. Because Peter keeps shooting at him in classic movie fashion, just keeps filling him with
He
bullets.
empties the gun. Because I was counting. All 6 bullets go into Bob.
He's a Superman. He's close to a Superman villain by hurling the gun at him, which he does not do.
Yeah. And then Bob still gets up.
He grabs Peter and lifts him up, and it's Charlie who stakes him.
Yep.
And then he starts freaking out and melting into green goo, and it is awesome.
Yep. And then he's a full-on skeletal thing,
Yeah.
and then he drops, and the pieces all scatter.
Yeah. But then, oh shit, where's Jerry?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, he's outside, and we're going to do this kind of thing where we're running through the house, and Jerry's appearing at windows and almost grabbing people.
He's outside, and also, interestingly, like, he's, like, using the vampire telepathy stuff, because he's outside, and he's, like, going, Amy, you must help me defeat them, kill the old man, and she's like, okay.
Okay, I'm a vampire now.
That was, I mean, I like to give myself some credit. That was
dead on
spot
Amanda
on.
Beers.
Thank you.
I thought for a second we were doing a scene from Married with Children. Okay. Yeah, their famous catchphrase. Okay.
I can't remember the name of her dumb husband. Not that it matters.
No,
but I can't remember.
I can't remember it either.
Husband.
Actually, I haven't watched that show in a long. I love that show as a kid, but to be fair, I have not revisited it in a long.
You're
time.
a huge Ted McGinley fan, right?
Love
why
McGinley.
would you?
I always said those later seasons of Happy Days were the best seasons.
Yeah, you're a McGinley head from way
big
back.
time McGinley head. But before Jerry ultimately gets his epic entrance crashing through this stained glass window.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. And this is the moment, though, where he's now, Peter's regained his faith or whatever, because he is holding him back with the cross.
Yes.
And it's cool. Just as we also see the sun rising behind him. And you're like, whoo-hoo!
Sun is rising behind him in a completely realistic fashion. By that, I mean painted scrim with someone turning up a light behind it.
Yeah. But
I
like it in concept, you know? Yes. And I like then when all the clocks hit 6 o'clock and start going off. And it is, Jerry being like, fuck, I pushed this too long.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then he does the bat transformation. Where do you stand on the bat transformation?
Like in terms of this effect?
Yeah, do you like it?
No. I mean, no. Well, I mean, I like it in concept. I think it's a little weak in execution.
I will also say that's probably the time.
I'm glad they did
this is probably the best they could do.
I'm glad they did it. I like the wolf transformation. I like the bat transformation. I like the
They do a clever
I like that they're
thing
doing
of like
that stuff.
Dandridge leaps,
Yeah.
and then they cut to instead of seeing him, you're seeing his animated shadow, and his animated shadow turns into a bat form, and then we see the puppet bat attack Peter Vincent, which is them ducking the transformation.
Yeah.
And the middle ground is done quickly. They're not really dwelling on it because it's all happening in flight.
I think they do it about as well as you could in 85, really.
I do think it's about as good as you're going to get for 85.
Yeah, I mean, it's weak by today's standards, but it's not embarrassingly bad as like some of the stuff we saw at Universal or whatever.
No.
He's not a cartoon.
Yeah, I mean it is, but it's an animated shadow. At
it's
least.
It's not literally the drawing of a bat that Bela Lugosi turned into.
No. So yeah, it attacks Peter, knocks him down, and it is a large, scary looking fruit bat.
I do like this actually when it's attacking him, and he puts the piece of wood in its mouth is biting on, so it can't get to him. That's all pretty good stuff.
And then when Charlie tries to help him out,
Charlie grabs the thing. He grabs the bat off him, and he gets a chunk bitten out of his arm, which is pretty nasty. But then that ray of sun hits the bat, and it sears, and it flies off downstairs into the basement.
I like it's over the top, but we're dealing with supernatural goobity goo.
Yeah.
I love the fact that when a vampire is hit by sunlight, it's green flame.
Yeah,
bright green flame.
Yeah, I like the green flame too. And so it's like the pumpkin bombs in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah,
they go up in green. It's cool because you're like, oh, it's Green Goblin. Of course, the flame would be green. That's awesome.
It's all you need.
I don't need it to make logical sense. I need it to make visual sense to me. All right.
Mm-hmm. Comic book sense.
Yes, man. That's the thing. I love that. I love when you're just like, well, it should be green. Why? Because it needs to be. It's aesthetic.
So you've got Dandridge's bat on fire, and he's shrieking, and he's flying for the basement,
and
because he needs cover.
They chase after him, but Vampire Amy, is now coming down the steps.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and Charlie's trying to hold her back as Peter's doing his best to open up Jerry's coffin, which has been locked from the inside.
Yeah.
Smart on a vampire's part, by the way.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So he's breaking it. Meanwhile, Charlie does do the stupid thing because she plays the tactic of, I'm a vampire. Then she goes to like, oh, Charlie, I just... And he's like, he puts the cross down.
Why would you hit me? I'm a girl.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then she's like, I'm a vampire.
Yeah. But Peter does get the coffin open, starts pounding that steak in, but doesn't get it fully in before Jerry comes back up.
I gotta say, this movie, they did the thing that Hammer did. It looks like Peter Vincent true. What would you do in real life? But Peter Vincent apparently doesn't know where a heart is. It looks like he stakes the guy in his armpit.
Yeah, it does. That just seems to be par for the course with these movies.
Apparently so. But yeah, Dandridge gets up like, that ain't no big.
Yeah, and he pulls the steak out of his chest, which is cool. But then
Yeah, all this is cool.
Charlie starts breaking open the windows that we actually saw at the beginning of the movie. Bob paint black.
Yeah, we did see Bob painting windows black.
so
I
he's-
like something that was set up and pays off. It pays
He's
off here.
crashing these windows, and so beams of light are coming in. I
I will say, I have lived in homes with basements, or have been in basements.
Yes.
At most, the basement would have a window. I love the fact that this thing has 360 windows. It's
Yep.
a basement. Because they literally just go corner to corner going, another window, smash, another beam of sunlight,
You're right.
pinning.
But
Dandridge.
it's one of those things where it's like, I forgive it because it's cool.
It is cool.
And I think this is the best vampire death we've seen so far on this whole show.
It's a pretty fucking good
Because
one, my friend.
this dude goes up.
Well, it's one of the ones where, similar, I guess, later on to Buffy decided that they wouldn't just fall down and turn to dust, they would explode.
Yeah.
Which, of course, was probably also money saving because they had the digital effects of like dust and all that stuff. But this is a vampire that literally explodes because it is apparently an old vampire and he's pinned to the wall, sun on him, and he's like, and then he just kind of pops. It's pretty great.
It is great. And I will say it's interesting you bring up Buffy because one of the things I was thinking watching this, and anytime I watch The Lost Boys or anything like that, I always go, look, I don't want to take anything away from Buffy. It's great. But when you talk about just how revolutionary it was, I'm going like, yeah, but Whedon was just stealing from Fright Night and The Lost Boys and all these
You
movies
always
in the 80s.
steal from the good stuff.
That's the stuff. I mean,
You
he's right, but it's like he didn't invent the postmodern, vampire thing. Like you can see a lot of Buffy influence when you watch this movie. And
the
then
big thing
interesting-
that you have to credit him with, the big thing is just the final girl.
Yes,
is
that-
the lead.
That is the thing.
the
He
chosen.
took that and glommed it onto this tone.
Yep.
And then it is interesting that one of the main Buffy writers writes the remake of this.
Yeah.
Which I remember when they announced that, and I went, that makes all the sense in the world that Marty Noxon
Makes
was right.
all the sense in the world.
So he blows the fuck up, and there's more green flames, and I love it. Love it.
And guess what? That's all it takes to
Amy's
cure someone
fine.
who was bitten.
And you can tell she's fine because her hair is back to normal.
I know. And her her boobs are still big.
No, the boobs
apparently.
stayed the same, and Charlie likey.
Charlie Likey.
No, but it does cut.
If they made that movie now, literally, they would have a scene where that actor just goes, Charlie Likey.
They have. It's sometime later. According to the novel, this is 3 months later. And also in the novel, there's an entire thing where they try out some host who's terrible, so they rehire Peter Vincent. I guess the book explains why Peter Vincent
How he got his job back.
Yeah,
I got
because
you.
they tried some interim host that was bad, and so they beg him to come back.
Huh,
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah,
The movie doesn't need to bother with that. He's just like, and I'm back. Thanks, everybody.
And they're making out, Charlie and Amy, and he's back on TV.
And he calls them out.
Yeah.
He mentions Charlie on the air.
He's like, hey, haha. Great. And just as they're about to get it on, Charlie once again looks across to the other house, and she's like, what is it? And he's like, no, it's nothing. It's all fine. And so they start to get it on. When we pan back, though, what's this? Guest star.
Glowing eyes.
Yeah, I was going to say, a brief guest star appearance from the narrator from 66 Batman. What's this? It is glowing eyes and the voice of Evil Ed.
Laughing again, the giggle, and saying, "You're so cool, Brewster."
Yeah. Now, what does that mean? Nothing, because Evil Ed doesn't come back in the sequel.
Shame.
because he chose to do 976 Evil instead.
And by dumb supernatural movie logic, we did see Peter Vincent remove the stake from dead Ed's body before he went back in the Dandridge house.
Yeah.
So that could just be like, yeah, you've got to leave the stake in the vampire or they come back. So Evil Ed's possibly a vampire. Is a vampire.
Yeah. And that's the end of the movie. That's Fright Night. I
wish it were good. I mean, this were a good movie.
This is one that's a must watch, I think. Of any of the ones we watched, this is one I say definitely watch.
It is. I definitely say give allowances for the time period.
Sure, it is a movie from 1985. But it's
give
a good
allowances
movie
for lapse of logic. But I do think that you're right. If you just go into this movie, the movie's good enough that it carries you through a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen it so often.
Right.
And now as an adult and, of course, as a writer, I look at it and go, doesn't matter. I'm loving the performances. I'm loving the concept.
Yeah.
I love the vampire moving in next door. I love the boy who cried wolf part. I love vampires getting bigger boobs and longer hair. It all straight to the stuff I love. Yeah. So it is a high recommend, almost a demand.
Yeah,
that you watch it.
This is definitely in the upper tier of the movies we've covered. This is a very enjoyable movie.
And again, we're just up and down the season. I think we said the same thing about the 70s, but to go from a very lame
some
shot on video
and
Frankenstein to this.
Yeah. Well, next week, Brendan, we're staying in the teen genre. Because we're meeting a teen wolf. Michael J. Fox is
I have not
wolf.
watched this in years.
I
know I will like the things about that. I always liked about it.
This was another childhood favorite of mine because as a kid, it's totally a kid werewolf movie.
Yes, it's a kid werewolf movie,
and I loved it as a kid, and I loved Michael J. Fox.
Teen werewolf movie. Yeah,
and I was a massive Michael J. Fox fan, and still is one of my all-time favorite actors. Love Michael J. Fox.
His charm and the charm of the great character actor who plays his dad, whose name I cannot place right now, but their charm, carries that movie.
It really does. It is a movie.
Fox is in plenty of bad movies, but he is always great.
That's the thing. It's not a good movie, but it is made watchable and enjoyable even by Michael J. Fox, who is excellent in it and is doing his best to sell the movie, you know.
He really is. He's working overtime in it.
He is working overtime in it.
And under a lot of yak hair. So we got that
a lot of yak hair. So yeah, we will be watching. And also, did you know this? I'm sure you did. Written by comic book legend Jeff Loeb. I
did know that.
Yeah. He wrote
You can see it all.
He wrote Teen Wolf and Commando. Those were his screenwriting credits.
The man who gave us the Red Hulk. Also gave us a Teen Wolf.
So, yes, that should be a fun episode. It's not necessarily a high, but it is certainly more enjoyable than a lot of the shit we've been covering.
Oh, yeah. This will be an easy watch.
Yeah,
it's an easy watch, and we won't get angry at it.
No, this is also a nostalgia watch. Like you said, I was saying, I loved it as a kid. I have not watched it in quite a while, so I am kind of excited to go back to it for the first time in a long time.
It's a movie that I actually would put no... Like this one, I was attacking on its logic because I want it to be slightly smarter.
Right.
Teen Wolf is dumb.
Right.
And so therefore, I will give it so much. It's like I'm just going to give it all the license because it's going to be stupid. But I did enjoy it back then, and I'll probably enjoy it this time.
And a very interesting thing, it comes out in 1985, the same year as this movie, and the same year as another Michael J. Fox movie called Back to the Future.
Is that the one with that was based on that book it's like a lot of cocaine in it?
Yes, that's it exactly. Yeah, Back to the Future had all the cocaine in it.
Bright Lights, Big City to the future.
Yeah, Bright Lights, Big City to the future. That's when he and Kiefer Sutherland get in that time machine. No, we'll talk about that. I just think that's very funny that it was like Teen Wolf, and then Back to the Future comes out, and he's the biggest star in the world.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, he was already. I'm sorry.
Family Ties had made him
Family Ties, he was already big.
He was big, but Back to the Future made him a major movie star.
Yeah.
And then also Teen Wolf came out.
That's
So
one of those where you're like, oh, could you release Teen Wolf first and
yeah.
then that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, so we'll talk some Teen Wolf next week on the show, but that's going to do it for this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
Oh, John, you know what we forgot? We forgot to talk about the terrible theme song at the end of it, though.
Oh.
I mean, as much as I love this movie, it actually ends with like, and in the darkness of a fright night. It's just like this horrible.
Performed by the Jay Giles Band.
Really?
Yes.
Ugh, because I like the Jay Giles Band. At least they're big hits. All right, I'm sorry.
Angel Wolves, the centerfold.
Yeah, all right. So go ahead, guys. You listen to that on YouTube and tell me if I'm wrong.